Welcome to the Visual Cast. Coming at you from Pittsburgh, I'm your host, Alon Hammer, aka Rem. The Visual Cast is a hybrid podcast where we sit down with some of the best, most interesting, and most exciting visual artists from all over the world. We chat about life, art, visuals, software, hardware, simulations, spirituality, and catalysts. It's essentially a massive nerd out, but the guests also do a set where we dive into their computer and get an up-and-close look at how they make art, how they perform art, or really anything they want to share. I have a long intro this week, and having been on the road in the past weeks, and still am, I didn't get to make an intro last week. So when you're done with this, episode 16, make sure to check out last week's episode with the noise master Cat Mac. It was a really introspective and inspiring conversation with a true OG hero of the visuals world, and I know you'll love it. And this week on the cast, we have a beautiful, super talented, and highly intelligent, particle-based human hailing all the way from my homeland, Achsheli Yuval Choen, aka MiniUV. UV is an exceptionally inspiring and full of authenticity visual artist. His amazing TouchDesighner skills and ability in not only simplifying but beautifying highly technical and intricate processes results in absolutely stunning and beautiful imagery. We chat about growing up in the boroughs of Tel Aviv, working in the family business of a photography store, having mandatory military service, and the retrospect of that experience and time, the lasting effects of trauma and growing with it, post-army travels in India, starting his real journey by studying music and sound engineering, and then shifting into electrical engineering, then discovering TouchDesighner out of a need for a visual audio environment, falling immediately in love, and starting to get into simulations, GLSL, and Python, eventually starting a Patreon and passing on his inspiration to others. For context, this conversation was recorded in the last week of April, and towards the end, we get into the very contentious and extremely non-linear, extremely complicated conversation around Israel and the Palestinians. Me and Yuval only have our experiences to draw from, and regardless of the words used or the fact that we are both born and raised in Israel, there is no definite answer to anything, especially from us. We try and steer into more interesting aspects of this topic, such as being an Iraqi Jew, Zionism powering anti-Semitism, conspiracies, propaganda on both sides, making connections and communicating with both sides, actually separating religious ideology from politics, making art, not war, and what it feels like to be an Israeli post-October 7th. Although this is an art-focused podcast, it would be inauthentic not to address and have a conversation around this topic, especially as me and UV, despite growing up in the same country, have vastly different experiences, perspectives, and upbringings. In no way, shape, or form is any of what we are saying meant to hurt or offend anyone. It's 100% out of love and comes from the need and want of every artist to express themselves in the hope of making the world a better place. With that being said, for UV's set, he dives into his amazing Patreon TouchDesighner project and shows us a very close-up look at Physarum, rendering super high-density point clouds and GLSL smoke simulations. I really love this conversation with UV. He's a real sweetheart and talented individual. He has a lovely ability to listen and respond with authentic expression, and for me, having this reflection from someone who grew up in the same place as me was really, really meaningful. Don't forget to like and subscribe, find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and share with anybody you think will enjoy this conversation and showcase. So without any further ado, here's the Visual Cast.
The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and it's fun for a while. Some people have been on the ride for a long time, and they begin to question, is this real, or is this just a ride? And other people have remembered, and they come back to us, and they say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride.
Please welcome to the podcast, Yuval Choen, MiniUV.
Hey. Thank you so much for these nice words, man. Really appreciate it.
Of course, dude. I've been following you for a nice amount of time, but never had the chance to really like properly meet you. And through doing this podcast, we kind of got a little bit acquainted, and it's really been a pleasure. You're quite the sweet person, and
Thank you, man. You too, man.
my first Israeli. You're my first Israeli. So things are gonna get crazy. Let's put it like that.
Ooh. Yeah, but let's talk about art. Like
Let's talk
politics.
about art. 100%. We're gonna
something.
We'll try and get into Israel because I think it's an important conversation, especially around art. But we'll do it at the end.
Yeah. Cool.
More interested in you, and you're right. Politics are boring, but talking about how we can make politics better, or talking about how art can make politics better, is always, I think, fascinating conversation. All right, so let's jump right into it. Yuvi, ach sheli. I'm so glad you're here with us. You're such an amazing example of what someone with a vision and a lot of motivation can achieve. Your level of detail and emotion in your art is outstanding. Your ability to leverage technologies and workflows to make absolutely stunning pieces of art is inspiring. For a 2-3 year user of TouchDesighner, your capabilities are out of this world, and your social media and Patreon are a testament to the success you deserve. I'm so happy to have you on and pick your brain. And my first question for you is, what drives you to learn more and get better at your craft?
Thank you again. Thank you again for the words. So what's drive me to get better? I mean, I think this is who I am. I always want to make my stuff perfect. I obviously my stuff are not perfect, and I know that there I can improve my skills in any, not just in art. But there's this voice in my head that tells me keep doing what you're doing and learn more. And I guess it's something that I can't really control. I just keep improving myself day by day.
Amazing. Yeah, perfection is one of those double-edged swords. It's one of those things that can help you move forward, but it's also one of those things that can keep you from achieving your things.
Yeah, definitely. I think from the beginning, when I started using TouchDesighner and creating and posting even on social media, mostly on Instagram, so it was hard for me, to show what I do. It wasn't that easy.
Yeah.
Especially at the beginning. And now I released it a bit more, Now I know when I create something new and it's still kind of under development, and I know it's not the best I can do with it, but it looks nice, so I release it, It's like if you compare it to a musician, for example.
Yep.
So a musician, it's much more hard to release a song or a track which is not finished yet. You know what I mean?
Of course.
Especially on Spotify or those
proper release.
A proper release. But for me, in social media, in Instagram, lately it's more about look, this is what I'm on. It's this is my process, and it's really fun because people see it and read and connect to it,
Yeah, for sure. You're creating some sort of experimental place where you can kind of share what you're working on, the process of it, and get feedback from people. I mean, this is the way to excel and grow as an artist and create an audience, It's the most cliche thing, but really we're only as good as the people that like our stuff, you know.
Oh yeah. That's
you know, it's
definitely.
not necessarily like fan fiction, like fans, you know, chasing after you or celebrity, but it's like we make art to express to other people emotion, or to invoke in other people emotion, or inspire. And it's always, or it should be, or it can be the other, right? Like you're making it, yeah, for yourself in some way. There's some sort of maybe release or understanding or growth.
Satisfaction. Yeah.
Satisfaction, for sure. But you're always releasing it outwards, and somebody's going to ingest it. Yeah, really, really good points. I wanted to say something about what you just said. It will come back to me. I want to jump to growing up in Israel. You know, I grew up in Israel my whole life, and left a few
I need
years.
a glass of water for this question.
yeah. Childhood and Israel. Whoa, big things together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you grew up in the center of Israel, a little bit different from where I grew up. Well, I should say a lot different from where I grew up, but the center of Israel is definitely where like the hub of things are coming. You know, whether it's Tel Aviv in the big city, or whether it's just kind of like a lot of industry and a lot of, you know, metropolitan kind of like first world city vibes are kind of in the city. It's also on the ocean, so there's a lot of drive to that. Yeah, just give us kind of like a very brief overview of what it was like growing up where you grew up, and, you know, maybe tell us a little bit about your family business and kind of where you find yourself connected to that.
All right. So I grew up in a city next to Tel Aviv called Ramat Gan. I grew up like in a small neighborhood, actually a really nice neighborhood. Like there's a very nice community around it. Like everyone, like it's not the whole city, but my neighborhood. You know, everyone knows everyone, and you kind of growing up in this kind of bubble, I would say. And yeah, it was like a really nice childhood, I must say. Like we had fun. We did, you know, stupid stuff that kids do. We were yeah, we were crazy kids, basically. Like my group of friends. And you know, eventually after high school, because my city is pretty much boring, so if you want to go out, you know, you go to Tel Aviv, which is like big city where all the clubs and bars and everything, all the scenes in Tel Aviv, and it's like 5 minutes away from my city, basically. Like in a normal European or in the States city, we'll consider to be like it's like Brooklyn or Queen. It's like
a suburb.
Yeah.
Or a borough.
But it's not really, because it's so small.
It's not really. It's small, you know? And it's so close like, as well.
So close, man. In Tel Aviv, you can go around by bike anywhere, you know, 10 minutes. You can go like really fast, you know. So it's
for sure. Tel Aviv's super interesting because it is really like a super modern metropolitan city, but it's tiny, and it's like, and there's so much stuff in Tel Aviv that you're like, how is it so small? You know, like you can literally walk or bike from like the edge of Tel Aviv, like Yafo, to like North Tel Aviv in like an hour, maybe an hour and a half. You know, it's like, it's not a big city, but at the same time, huge population, and like and tons of things happening all the time. It's a very very unique city, I think. Probably one of the best parts of Israel.
I love it. But also, you know, I'm a bit like, you know, I need a break from that city. So of
course,
I have some thought maybe to go somewhere else. But for now, as you said, because of my family business, that I'm still working over there. So it's kind of like still my center of life. So to move to another city, to move your center of life to another place, for me, it's really hard. You know, I
for everybody.
don't like changes. You know,
Yeah.
I feel very comfortable here. And of course, the language, the culture, everything. It's like I love it. What can I say?
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's also what you know, right? It's kind of what you're used to, and like you said, change is difficult. Question for you. So the family business is a camera company or a camera store.
Kind of.
Kind of.
Like a photography store.
But I guess
we don't sell like equipment.
Okay.
We take pictures, then print stuff.
Develop film and things like that.
Develop films, yeah.
Did you grow up around creatives? Like, was your father, mother kind of like in the creative sphere? Were they doing some sort of art? Like, what was like the first or earliest memory that you can remember of, like, you know, because you come from music, so was there like kind of this pushed idea of like, oh, play an instrument or try this or try that? Was there some sort of
like music wise? Yeah, like my parents are both like singing.
Oh wow.
They were playing instruments when they were young. Like not anymore, but you know.
Yeah.
So they you know, I had a piano lessons, I had the guitar lessons. Like my family is around music mostly, but not like more artistic vibes. Like none of them is like basically doing actual art than beside music. So I didn't grow in this environment at all. Like eventually I went to study sound engineering. After I served the army and then traveled a bit and then went to study sound because I wasn't like a good musician. I'm still not a good musician. But I was like really interested in how sound works, you know, technically.
Technically, yeah.
And it was like 2 years of studying, and it was amazing. I really enjoyed.
You learned Ableton?
I was learning Ableton.
Pro Tools or no?
Actually, Pro Tools, yeah.
Pro Tools as well,
yeah. Because we were studying inside a studio.
Right.
Like was a studio that has like a school. But actually, what caught me over there is we had like electronic lessons of like audio or like how basically microphones and like amplifier works,
like,
but they
actual waves.
Yeah, but like actual waves. Also electronic, like how does it works, like currents and electricity and stuff like this. So people over there were shocked because they didn't thought this is like the part of the lessons. So I was like, wait, wow, this is like this is crazy. You know what I mean? It's like I can build stuff, you know. So I started to build some like amplifiers and like oscillators. It's really easy, you know, basically to do it.
Oscillators are easy to build, right? Like it's just basically just a signal,
it's like,
right?
I mean, of course,
you have to visualize it, I guess.
But today's also oscillators has like tons of functionality, but to make sounds from electricity, it's really, really easy.
It's easy,
you know? So, I started like building stuff and experimenting with it because I got tired from like sitting in the computer and making music a lot. It was like, for me, I had fun with it, but I wanted like something more physically in a way. Then I bought some like modular synths and stuff, and I started playing with this. And then I went to study electrical engineering, basically. So I finished like my degree last year, basically, because of like the interest of like electronics and sound and everything.
You were more interested in kind of like the way sound is made, or the way that electricity can conduct different types of frequencies. I think it's really interesting.
How does it work? You know,
how does it work? Yeah. How does it
work? That's the question.
That's the question.
Everything.
Everything. Yeah. And that that must apply in your artwork as well. Like, how does it work? And that's maybe that's what kind
100%.
of drives you in a way, you know, to want to learn more and you know, like, how does sound work? Okay, I'm going to go be an electrical engineer. I'm going to figure it out. Okay, I'm studying electrical engineering. I'm getting into this visual world. I want to figure out how this works now. This is a very
maybe in 2 years I will find something else. Like this is a really
robots
possible thing, you know. Yeah, I don't know what will happen, you know.
AI
Like
girlfriends.
this is what happened with the sound. Like basically, I'm not doing any music anymore because I kind of got bored of it, like of creating. I love music, of course, but like.
What did you start with music? Were you you know, what is your like connection to music? Were you playing guitar, and what was the besides for wanting to understand more about how music works and sound works, what was the real like push to go study music?
It wasn't like studying music. It was studying basically sound.
Sound.
I just started like, you know, playing with Ableton and like making experimental sounds. It wasn't about like creating actual music, you know, in a way. It's like was more electronic music and experimental stuff. Yeah, sometimes more four in the floor stuff, like usual like clubs music, you know, but
Psytrance,
really love
bass.
Yeah, also drum and bass a bit,
Drum and
like
bass.
more glitchy vibes.
Yeah.
I went through all the genres, you know. I tried this all, but I didn't really release any music, or I didn't really took it that seriously. You know, I was enjoying, you know, I was like inviting friends and like doing
Small parties,
just doing music, you know. Yeah.
Was it like it was like an explorative thing? Like you were kind of like, okay, I get that this is a program and this electronic music and I can experiment and play. Was it kind of like you weren't really sure if you want to be a musician, but you're like, okay, let's try and get more into this kind of thing?
Yeah, I was enjoying the software basically.
Right. Okay.
I remember now. I found this guy. I think he's an Australian dude. His name is Mr. Bill.
Oh, of course. Of course. I know Mr. Bill.
You know Mr. Bill?
Yeah. We're
So
friends.
he's like the
He has a great
master of
podcast,
Ableton.
by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he has a podcast with
haven't-
musicians. It's awesome.
Yeah. So I started seeing his tutorials on Ableton,
Yeah.
and he's like taking this. I mean, it's like really old technique. Probably everyone knows them already.
Right.
But he was like, you know, like kind of like TouchDesighner. He was taking some stuff that basically the developers of Ableton didn't thought this is.
Didn't even think you could do it. Right.
Yeah, it's like what the fuck, you know? It's like, so I was like, whoa, I have to use those tricks, you know, to my own music.
Of course.
So I think it's like about this, you know, the software, to basically have this tool that can let you do crazy sounds, you know.
Yeah, it's really like it is an environment, Ableton. It's not like node-based per se, but it's an environment where you can, you know, modules and different plugins, and there's even like a coding, right? There's even like a back-end kind of coding place.
Yeah.
Kind of like for VSTs, right? Or something like that.
I think like Max for Live, it's called.
What's it called?
Maximix.
Max MSP. But Max MSP is you're saying there's a part
like a
of Max
different-
MSP for Ableton.
Yeah.
Got you. Yeah. That makes sense. And now, I mean, the TouchDesighner also has Ableton link. You know, you can basically make sounds in TouchDesighner and send them to Ableton. I mean, it's not even.
That's actually what got me into TouchDesighner. To be honest.
Really?
That's like that's the transition from like music Ableton to TouchDesighner.
Wow. This kind of connection between the two, or Ableton link?
Yeah, because I was trying myself to make this connection to basically control Ableton through like Python script.
Right.
Like I wanted to control Ableton through movement. Like I don't know if you raise your hands or like the filter is going up and stuff like this. So I started like hard coding it.
That's so
cool. Because Ableton doesn't have an API or anything.
Right.
Yeah. So you kind of need to hack it. Not really
Yeah.
hack it, but like
You didn't know what you're doing.
yeah. And I didn't know. I was studying like during I was doing it, I was like studying Python and everything, and then someone told me, listen, there's this software, TouchDesighner, check it out.
Interesting.
And this is who I am now.
Yeah, this is where I am right now. Interesting.
Yeah.
I want to touch on a few things. So, first
Right.
of all, I want to go back just a little bit to kind of past childhood, but a little bit when you're still a child in the army, and before
Yeah.
you were kind of like getting to music. Yeah, if anybody doesn't know, in Israel there's a mandatory military service, and besides for it being mandatory, it's extremely ingrained into society and in the culture. Extremely nationalistic kind of ideal of being part of the army. I grew up in a settlement, kind of like in the West Bank. So for us, it was like not even a question of going to the army. It was almost required, like more than required by the law. It was like required by the culture. It was like. But by society, yeah. I never even knew that you could say no to the service. You know what I mean? Until later on in
Yeah.
life, or I thought that if you did say no, then you'd be like, I don't know, ostracized or anything. And for us, it was like also like a very big thing to go into like a combat unit, to be
Mhm. Yeah.
be really
Yeah, I mean, it depends. It depends who you are, but yeah.
depends who you are. But it was like by us, it was like even if I was not into sports at all. I've been a nerd geek
Yeah.
from the age of 10. So for me, going
Yeah,
into a
but you had like the right profile, basically
physically, yes, I had a profile that would
physically.
allow me to go into. Yeah, you're 100% right. If I had a lower profile, then I wouldn't have that expectation. But even with the high profile, the expectation wasn't like go to intelligence, go to robotics, go to I don't know, whatever. 3D. There's people that learn Blender in the army. So I was I was given a gun. But yeah, what was your experience like in the army? I know it's sometimes a sensitive subject, so please feel free to share what you want. I'm less interested in like about like the IDF per se, and more like were there things in your experience that made you A, an artist and who you are today, and B, maybe things that you can kind of like relate to now 10, 15 years later that are that still kind of sit with you in who you are as a person?
So I also served in a combat unit. I don't like to talk about it too much, to be honest. But I can tell you that definitely I learned tons of things, and I think the most thing that like affects me these days also, it's like to be how do you say, like
What?
not give up, like
Not
even
give
if
up.
it's hard. Yeah. Even if you feel like you can't do it anymore,
Right. Push yourself
like
to the maximum.
in the army, in the contact of the army, it's like physically, right? Because they trained us, and they did like a lot of crazy stuff, physically to make you strong, to make you prepare to war eventually, and like I'm not saying like real life has to be like this kind of surviving and like war zone or something. Like you can be a chill person and and like just like do your thing slowly, but it definitely makes you more like I need to be doing my stuff like now, like it needs to be right now. It needs to be perfect. It needs to be like you can sit down in the entire night until it's done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good. It's a good thing. It's a bad thing, And of course, I have a lot of friends from the army that are, it's like something that you can't explain even. It's like people that you were experiencing. It's like, it's a friendship that it's like so deeply inside. The connection is like so strong because you suffered basically
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's really nice to have it.
The trauma connection connects us all.
Yeah, I don't like to say trauma because I don't consider I experienced some hard stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's interesting because in Israel we all know people with actual PTSD. So
Yeah,
like we kind of look at
everyone
ourselves.
is traumatic.
Everybody is traumatized.
Everyone is.
Everybody has trauma, 100%. But I think that we don't, I have a lot of reservations about the army, and we don't have to talk about it. I actually talked about it in an episode a week or two ago with Matthew. But I have reservations about it, and I think that the only thing I want to touch on is what you just said about the trauma. Yes, everybody has trauma, and it's an extremely personal experience with trauma, right? Like my trauma could be hitting my toe, and it might like cause me trauma for the rest of my life, and somebody else might see their parents die in front of them and cause them trauma for the rest of their life. It's a very subjective experience, and I think that when it comes to trauma, especially in Israel, like you said, we're all kind of, we grew up in the 90s. Like we grew up with the Intifada, with the wars, and it's like,
you're afraid to go out. You're afraid to go out to ride a bus,
You ride a bus, like, exactly. Just small things, right? Like the simple things.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like how we grew up. And then when you go to the army and you go through the extreme experiences, whether you were in a war or not, there is an element of, post-trauma. But because we see people that have actually been, actually I say like this, but have been in a terrorist attack or have been in a war, and they have, like hard time sleeping, or they have real effects on their daily life, then we look at our thing and say, oh, well, it's not so bad. But that's
why I said I don't have trauma, because I know how trauma actually
looks
affecting your life,
Yes. But I must make this point of that it can still affect your life. Like just because I didn't see a person die in front of me,
for sure.
Like the amount of and trauma is like one of those words, it's like God or religion. It's like such a blanket statement for something very specific. But the hardships and the difficulties that I faced in my military service lasted me till today. I have there's so many little things in my life, some big things too. And if you ask my wife, she's going to say they're big things, but but things in my life that I've managed to, because the way to grow is to look at the problems that you have and the traumas that you have, understand them, have a relationship with them, and maybe in a way, transmute them or circulate them or heal them, all these different kind of things that you can do. But my point is that like I kind of realized in myself that I was kind of looking at these things that I did in the army, simple things like you said, being pushed to, like, let's say run 10 kilometers, right? I never ran in my life. All of a sudden, within 2 weeks, I'm supposed to run 10 kilometers. And I'm just dying. I'm dying. I'm going to die. I'm going to die from not being able to breathe because I'm a fat fuck. And but I'm being pushed and being forced to do it. And you kind of learn this kind of idea of like pushing yourself, but how it ingrained in my body was traumatic. Like it was an experience that was ingrained in my mind as something very difficult. And later on in life, I've come to this understanding with different relationships, specifically with this one. It's like working out or being, doing exercise. I understood it's very difficult for me. It's like a motivation thing. It's a lazy thing. It's a lot of things. But the core of it was that I'm so scared to go work out because I'm scared that I'm going to feel that way that I felt when I was pushed in the army.
I'm totally with you. It's like something that actually I feel right now. Yeah. Actually, lately I was a few months ago, I started like going to the gym again. But like after the army, I had really a problem to do sport.
Do sports,
you're related to something that you're suffering from.
Suffering, or like what you were saying, that being pushed to your limit is a very good thing to know. But it's almost like if you don't know your limit, then maybe you're kind of living in like a limitless experience. And when you know your limit, then you're kind of like, okay, well, I know this feeling. You know what I mean? Like it's a very interesting thing that I feel like as Israelis, we don't always.
This is actually like one part. Like there's also, of course, the psychology part of like,
Of course.
You know, in the army, you do stuff that you don't like. I mean, I don't know how to explain it, but like you don't necessarily like want to do. You know?
Of course. What do you mean? You don't want to do any of it?
Yeah, of course. But no, but you know that
like,
it's important, and then like you're basically, I don't know, you're serving your country and whatever.
Right. Nationalism ideas.
Yeah, but like
protecting your family.
Like, there was stuff. Yeah, but there was stuff that was like
bad.
I don't want to do it. You know. Yeah, I don't want to do it. And eventually, I stopped doing it. Like in the end of the army, I was like, listen, I told my commander, like, listen, dudes, like, no.
Yeah.
This is not for me.
Good for you.
I was a kid, you know, I was 18 years old. I didn't know what I'm going through. And after a year and a half, you suddenly realize that you're doing stuff that are nothing. Like it's no. You know, just no.
Yeah. It's objectively wrong.
It's not for me. It's not for me. It's just, I can't do it.
You kind of, I think, you know, we don't have to go into specifics. I can give an example from my experience if you want, but like, you know, I have a very strong memory of like, of going out on an arrest. A lot of things you do is kind of like arresting people. It's kind of like
what I was saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
you go,
those stuff, you know?
Yeah. You know, the first time there's adrenaline, maybe excitement, maybe like you're kind of, and also you're young. You don't know shit. I didn't know shit about anything. I came from like the fucking religious West Bank. I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
And I'm also my whole life being told and shown that these people are dangerous and these people are bad, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just, there's no other situation. That's all I know. So, you know, you go and you arrest a kid and you break into, you know, you knock in his fucking door in the middle of the night.
Fucked up, man.
Super fucked up, super weird. And like I feel like because you're in this environment, it's very hard to make the connection of like, this is wrong. Because like you said, I'm protecting my family. You're also just
everyone is doing it around
everybody's
you. Like
doing
your
it.
Friends,
Your commander.
Everyone is like,
exactly. Your commander,
like
your officer,
you know?
normal thing to do. You get all the intelligence, right? The intelligence report is like, this kid threw a rock at whatever. This kid did a thing. Yeah. So you don't even compartmentalize that it's a child or that it's you know, it's a family that you're ruining their night.
It's a threat. You know, it's a threat. It's just a threat.
It's a threat. But the people like yourself who, and you know, not myself, I actually I got kicked out of my unit. It wasn't even like me saying no, I just got kicked out because I was subordinate and making too much trouble. So I ended up my army service not having to do that anymore. But a lot of people like yourself, you get to a point where you kind of are just like, wait a second, this is not keeping anybody safe and this is not doing anything positive. I'm just a cog in a very broken machine. And you say no. And this is a very important part, I think, that we miss as Israelis.
It was really hard to say no.
Very
hard.
Like, you're going to get in trouble. Like, you might go to jail.
Yeah, of course. They want me to go to jail, man. It's like, they said like, well, I was also a good soldier, you know? So they were shocked. They were like, man, what the fuck, you know? Like, and I was like, I insist, you know, I don't want to do it anymore. Like, just put me in jail. I don't care, you know?
Yeah. Like, leave me the fuck alone.
No, eventually they didn't put me in jail, but I stopped like being in a combat unit.
Were you
since then my thoughts were released, you know? I was really in a depression in a way.
Yeah. I mean, I was depressed my whole service. Were you a khapash? Kaze?
I was like training. I was a sniper.
You were a sniper.
I was training like other snipers because I was really good at it. Actually.
Nice. Oh, so you were training other snipers in your unit? Were you in? Where were you serving?
In Golani.
Golani. Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, it's a very. I always think about it like it is such a cultural thing. you know, and it's like if you don't go to the army, you have this like thing missing in your cultural experience in Israel.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I meet a lot of kids, you know, 18-year-olds and 20-year-olds, or even like, you know, 25-year-olds, second generation, that didn't go to the army, that kind of denied their service.
My little brother didn't go, man.
Didn't
Like,
go,
He
yeah.
was like,
He's like, fuck
and
it.
it was like easy actually.
I think so too. I
He
think that
didn't do like
the fear that we had as kids of like not going to the army, I think is a lot
Man,
different
it's
now.
like, it wasn't a question.
It wasn't a question.
Like,
it wasn't a question.
Wasn't a question.
Yeah. And it's interesting, right? Because I like, for me, it's like the religious, messianic, Jewish place. But for you, it's like just a nationalist, like, idea.
Yeah, it's more national.
Right? But it's so crazy how those two things, when you see both of us, how those two things are the same.
Yeah.
Then it makes you think,
It's
wait
the
a second.
same. It's the same.
Maybe they're fucked up, you know? Maybe they're the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on from the military.
Yeah, stop the army. Stop the army.
We're going to start getting PTSD here. So moving on from the military, you kind of, you know, this is another classic Israeli trope. You go traveling. You go out to the world.
Yeah.
You kind of see different things. You see different cultures. Super
big
important.
Trip, big trip.
Where did you go?
I went to India, actually.
Okay.
You know, it's
Very
like
nice.
splitting into two
Realities.
places. Most of the people go to India, and the rest goes to South America.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like India, it's more for me, you know. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. What did you do? Did you backpack?
Yeah, it was like almost a year of not backpacking all the time, but just living over there, you know. And you know, you have like in each place, you have those kind of like Israeli community, small Israeli community.
Yeah.
You see a lot of Israelis. So at the beginning, it was fun, you know. You travel, you see people, you meet people. You see amazing landscapes. But then I felt like, wait, everywhere I go, I see Israelis. It's like, right? Yeah, I wanted to go to India, you know?
Yeah.
So I was like, shit, I'm going to go away. So I went to like a very far place in India. And it was like in the east.
In the
called
east.
I forgot the name, Sikkim.
Okay.
It's like another region where most of the people there are basically from Nepal.
Uh-huh.
And it was like, finally I got to the point, like, this is what I wanted, like quiet.
Right.
Nobody speaks my language. Nobody even, I can't really communicate with them because they don't even speak English, but I don't need to, you know?
Yeah.
I just need to wake up, smoke weed, and like, just like, you know, watching the view and traveling and like, you know, just kind of doing nothing.
Yeah.
But it was so like fulfilling, you know. It's like you don't have troubles after. Like imagine after 3 years serving the army, where it's like so intense, and you're not doing what you really want to do.
You don't have freedom.
You know.
You don't have any type of freedom.
You don't have freedom, man.
Yeah.
You're in jail, basically.
Basically,
yeah. So suddenly you can do whatever you want. So my choice was to actually, like, I don't want to do nothing. You know, I want to wake up and see where it goes. Like just you know, and it was so nice. So nice. But yeah, eventually you need to go back. You need to go back and actually start life, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so amazing to be able to just go traveling and do nothing and sit on the beach. It's like you said, man. You're doing nothing is the thing that you're doing.
It's
you know?
it's actually what I'm doing, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's not doing really nothing, but you know, you're just living.
You're just living.
Without any purpose of like or mission or whatever.
Especially at that age, right? It's such an important thing to see and feel. Like, what is it like doing nothing? Like, what is it like just being in my own with myself? And India is like a great place to do that for sure. So, from India, we kind of come back to reality. You're into music. You're kind of realizing that you want to go study music. You go study Ableton. While you're studying Ableton, you get like kind of infatuated, or kind of you want to figure out how sound works, and you go into engineering. When you were studying engineering, you were studying electrical engineering, and you got to learn some code and kind of get into this deeper into the world of computers, and you find TouchDesighner. So what was tell us how you found TouchDesighner. What was it like studying electrical engineering, and then all of a sudden seeing like, oh, this is a tool for making visualizations.
Yeah. So I think like generally when I started studying electrical engineering, so my goal wasn't to, I want to go to high tech because it's like a lot of money in Israel and whatever. I was really interested in studying actually what I want. So I was really motivated, and I was like looking to know more always. And to take the skills that I have from the sound engineering and the skills that I'm studying right now. And I think it was like during the very beginning of Corona, where, we were home doing nothing, like in India. And then my friend, my friend was telling me, listen, let's do something, like let's do a project, let's do something crazy. And I was okay, let's do it. And he was like, listen, I have an idea. I want to control sounds with movements. And he was saying like, let's do it in a party in Midburn. It's like the Burning Man of Israel. Yeah. So it was like, let's offer them to build this kind of room that you go inside and you start moving and sounds appears and like, things happening, and you affect you affect the sounds and music by the movement. So I was like, okay.
Sounds
it
cool.
was like a challenge, sounds cool. Let's actually do it. I know Ableton, I know a bit of Python. So I was like, okay, let's find somehow to detect the body movement. So I was like, Googling and reading and everything. So I found out about a MediaPipe.
MediaPipe, yeah.
You know
NVIDIA.
No, it's not NVIDIA.
It's not NVIDIA?
It's, I think it's Google. I don't know.
It's a library,
but,
right? It's a library or API.
It's it's an AI.
Yeah.
It's an AI library that you basically detects pose and like face blend marks and everything basically from the body. And actually, TouchDesighner has like a plugin for it. Two people like develop it. It's like really nice to use.
The new one with Torrens development.
Torrens and I forgot the name of the. No, not that Simulate. It's another dude. But we.
Oh yeah. That Torrent did together. Yes. Yeah. They developed it together.
A collaboration.
It was a collaboration. Yeah, I think it was .simulate.
Yeah.
I think it was .simulate.
No, it wasn't .simulate. It was someone else. I forgot his name.
No, it is. I'm seeing.
Anyway.
Okay.
So I started actually developing my own plugin, not to TouchDesighner, but generally pure Python, and hacking like MIDI, like converting it to MIDI and basically putting it in inside Ableton. Somehow it was like a big mess, I didn't know what I'm doing, but it actually worked, Eventually I was like controlling sounds with my hands.
With your hands, yeah, amazing.
It was lame, but it worked. So it was like a big satisfaction for me because I actually did it,
Yeah.
But then to make it more robust and like more actual application that you can rely on.
Mhm.
I needed more. And I wasn't good enough. And then this guy, a friend of mine, which also, Imri,
Of course.
and
He's
so
the one who said to
he
you, "Let's do something crazy."
no, he's
No.
another
Okay.
friend.
A different friend. Okay.
We
Okay.
didn't know each other before, but
Okay.
a friend of mine, friend of mine told me this guy is doing like similar stuff.
Right.
Check him out, and he told me about TouchDesighner
Oh wow.
and about Kinect. And like in the beginning, I was like, "What is this? Like, I don't want to learn another software. I don't
software.
want to And eventually, I opened up TouchDesign. I downloaded it. It was free,
Yeah.
for like non-commercial. And like, I'm seeing those screens around me, and like the minute I was like clicking on when you open and you can go inside like another node, and then like
Right.
it's like never ends. I was like, wait, there's
Fell in love.
something crazy going on here,
Yeah.
like all the structure. Suddenly, I was like, what's
Especially
going on
because
here?
you're coming from like a code, like a line code based environment
Yeah.
where it's like
So it was like
once you understand the language, you can kind of do anything, right? It's like all putting the pieces
Yeah.
together. And then TouchDesigner is kind of like saying to you, okay, you can use the same problem solving like logic of like scripting and variables and references,
And you
but
have also like ready, like built-in components
of course,
that you can use.
built-in
Like
components,
the
easy to
Ableton API. It's like it's amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah, all the APIs, all the techniques that come with TouchDesigner, and it's super open ended. You can script anything for it. So the combination of the visual idea of like going in and out of comps, connecting the nodes, it becomes something that I think for people that come from code. Sorry, you come from code. I don't come from code. But
Yeah.
you come from code. It's very inviting.
Yeah,
For me,
get it,
obviously,
like I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I got it like really fast. Like
you
I
get it
was
fast.
like,
100%.
all right, it's like this is how it works, and like,
Yeah.
but you, of course, over the days and the months, you realize more and more things. But
Yeah,
Sure.
it's an amazing environment. And I was gonna say, like, for people like me who are visual, who come from like the art world, it's scary. But the moment you realize that it's just environment for you to play around in, then that fear of like, oh well, I don't know how to script or I don't know how to do these things goes away. And the
Yeah.
more you learn the techniques, the more you learn the workflows, the op snippets. In the window op snippet, every
of
single
course.
every
I
single
I use
node.
it these days.
Yeah, all the time. I always
And the documentation, the wiki, it's like
The
also,
wiki,
and then the forums,
face-
everything. It's like
yeah, the Facebook group.
everything is there. We just
Everything
need
is
to
there.
find it.
Yeah, yeah. So it was kind of
what I wanted to say,
Please.
about when I started using it. So I started like obviously started like doing the project that I developed into TouchDesigner. I started like playing around with this Ableton plugin. But what happened, which is interesting actually, was like when I realized, okay, they did it for me. I have the ability to do what I wanted very, very easily. Because these days also I had the Kinect. It's like,
yeah.
okay, I've got it. I can control by my body the sounds. So it's amazing. But then I was like, wait, but which movement will control which sound? How it will happen? This is, and I realized, okay, this is the real work. You know what I mean? To be creative. Okay, you have the tools, but now you need to be creative. And I stopped it because I was like busy with other stuff, and like it was like a real thing to like you need to have a lot of time to actually sit down and figure out how the whole system will work. Which I think it's a good part. Yeah,
It's
I
definitely
just
a good
wanted to
point.
say that.
No, it's definitely a good point. Having like, you have a guitar in front of you, and maybe you have a book that shows you how to do chords, but then you have to start thinking, okay, well, what do I like? What sounds do I like? Or what progression do I like? Or et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
It's very similar, when, like you said, you're given the tools, and we can talk now about the different people that you followed and kind of learned from. I think it's very important because you're new at this and you've managed to get to a very high level in a very short amount of time. So the way and techniques that you've learned are very relevant to people that are getting into it now. Yeah, please tell us, kind of some of the masters that you followed, and we can, shout them out, maybe link to them, and kind of, what led you into you kind of said, okay, so you had this problem that you were trying to solve of the media pipe and the motion into audio, but very quickly we see on your Instagram, and we'll just show it a little bit while we're here with you. Oh, wrong one. Very quickly, we see this progression into something completely different, into, this playing with points. We see this kind of, by the way, this is one of my favorite ones, is this one. We see this very, very distinct kind of rendering style with the black and white. So what kind of led you into these different paths of wanting to learn Physarum, kind of like this different types of natural generative math, and what kind of led you into the path of because you're not an artist, you are, but you didn't come from an aesthetic, right, of a fine art or like this. What kind of helped you or drove you into okay, now I have the systems, I've solved the problem, now what am I doing? How did you, what pushed you to kind of get to these ideas and these looks?
At the beginning I was just studying a lot. I was studying a lot from Paqueta 12, of course.
Shout out Paqueta 12 for sure.
The master of masters.
Master of masters.
All basically studying how you calculate things with tops and pixels, which this is how I do my stuff. And I love his knowledge and technique, but my style obviously is something different. So I'm taking what I learned and implementing it for my needs,
Of course. That's the beauty of Paqueta 12.
Yeah, definitely. What I wanted to say. So yeah, I've started basically dealing with particles and point clouds. I was very also one of my favorites artists is Newham Beaton. His name is Artem. You can find it in Instagram also. He's doing this kind of black and white point clouds with a lot of generative shapes, very distinct shapes. A lot of most of them using basically equations. And I think that when I found him and I saw his work, I was, wait, this is what I want to do, And he wasn't doing any tutorials and anything, but I was trying to mimic one of his stuff. And then suddenly he opened up a Patreon. Actually, I think this is one is using my technique, I think.
Yeah, you're right. Finally playing with a great tutorial by MiniUV. Right up here.
Yeah. So he started doing the Patreon, and immediately I was like, I need to know the secret.
Wow.
And I got to know a lot of stuff from him also. And of course, I also took it to my own vibe, because of course I have it's like my art is mostly black and white, and it's not the same, but like it's like
Inspired by.
very inspired and minimalistic. It's all about kind of the movement, not the colors. I don't know.
Yeah.
For me, it's really hard to have colors. Actually, recently I did add some colors.
Colors are
But
good.
it's like all about finding the movement and the shapes that are organic and are feeling like naturally, to your eyes. Yeah, so it took me a long time. I think after a year or so, I actually developed my own kind of like system that I'm using a lot, which is very, very versatile. Like you can basically play around and do different stuff with it, with different looks, and it's like the same kind of system. It's like very basic system for all the textures that I'm doing. And I've started like my own Patreon when I felt like I have things to teach. I built my own system, so why not sharing and teaching it? I think my first one was actually a 2D particle system that I was using. And it's like I really built like this component, like, you have this particle GPU. So I was very inspired by this, but like I made it very easy to use and very simple, people started using it actually.
Your Patreon is great.
Yeah.
Definitely check out UV's Patreon. A lot of good things to learn, a lot of information, a lot of techniques, organic shapes, Z-axis manipulation.
Yeah. So this is a really nice technique.
Super cool.
Yeah, and these days I'm developing some new stuff. I recently developed this 3D Physarum.
Yeah, we're gonna check that out soon.
Which really I think it's like one of my real, like really I don't know. I'm really satisfied by the result. Of course, proud. I mean, it's still like I can still improve it.
Yeah.
But I saw like Polyhop, which is I'm a big fan of him, using it a lot, and I was like
he's using it a lot. He posts a lot about it. He posts a lot about this Physarum
stuff. Because it's like really fun, and also I think he improved it because it's like he's getting really nice look out of it. So it's really nice to see big people that I really admire using my stuff.
Yeah, that's a very special moment for sure. Yeah, I mean, look at this beautiful stuff he's doing with it. Amazing.
Yeah, really cool.
It's I want to jump into your project. I just
yeah, for sure.
I want to first talk to you just quickly about math and nature, and I'm just kind of like looking at this and being inspired to to kind of go into this direction of conversation. But it's pretty crazy. You also understand it probably on a different level than me because of your engineering experience, but something simple like Brownian noise, right, is essentially just calculating dust particles, like literally understanding how dust particles move and then calculating it into some sort of algorithm or logarithmic math. And when it comes to this Physarum, I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, Physarum, it's very clear that the way that nature is structured and the way that we understand our reality and nature through math is beautiful. It's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. Like the representation of the Physarum, and I would love to hear more about it from you. But just from my experience, like the representation of noise. I love noise. It's it's something that seems random. It's something that seems completely abstract and there's no substance to it. But then when you really play with it and you really look deeper into it and you play with the different values of the scale and the amplitude and the frequency, which is kind of like mimicking, airflow in the air, or mimicking sunlight rays that are going to dissipate things, or mimicking the size of the atom, and all these things, it's all kind of related. You start to see patterns, you start to see structure, you start to see beauty. And I think it's a really nice metaphor to life as well. Like when I go look at a beautiful forest or a beautiful view, it's very macro, right? I'm not really seeing the small little ladybug on the tree. I'm not seeing the beautiful fractal of the branch, but I'm seeing the kind of big fractal of the way that, the sun hits the mountain, and this is where these trees grow, and this is where these trees don't grow, and kind of the whole beautiful thing of nature. I just love that metaphor of computer graphics relating to nature in reality. I just love to hear your opinion about it and kind of like where it hits you, and also like how did you discover Physarum? Where did it come to you?
So I don't know. I think for me it's more about like the actual challenge of like understanding the algorithm, like mathematically and the concept, and then like implementing it inside any software, for example, TouchDesighner. Like the Physarum you can do in other softwares, obviously. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just attracted to those kind of like structures and feeling of like organic, and like when I look at something and like know how it works, I know why those particles are moving like this, and like I think during this process of like developing actually this simulation, I was like, you don't see the result always because you're still developing, and it's like it doesn't look like it's what it should look.
Right.
And suddenly you realize, okay, I know what's wrong, and you fix it, and then the structures emerge. So this first moment when it happens, it's like God came out from the sky,
Apropos.
I was like jumping out of my my chair, and I made it happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's also obviously it looks very nice. Look what people made with it, and but that comes after. Of course, I know it will look good because I know how it will look. But this the satisfaction of like creating it, it's like something that I can't compare to. I don't know. It's
interesting.
Like these days, I'm figuring out what's the next thing. So I was playing with smoke lately, and like it's yeah.
So it's an
addiction, basically.
It's an addiction.
Basically, it's an addiction. It's an addiction.
Yeah, to understand things and kind of understand them deeper and at a more level that you can control them. Is it I'm not trying to get like super psychological, but is it like the need to understand something so you have control over it? Like, is it kind of those two things are together in a way?
Yeah, yeah. Like, yeah. And like, I don't know if get control, but like to have it.
Yeah.
In my computer to actually play around with it.
Yeah. I don't mean control necessarily like in a negative way, more of just like in a, what is control? Control is understanding the thing that you're trying to control on a deeper level, right? If you're doing propaganda, you have to understand the target audience to be able to do propaganda. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to understand the audience. So it's like the wanting to control is outside of the actual being able to control through understanding something.
Yeah,
and what
for
about
sure.
Physarum? Like, where did you first hear about it? The concept? Did it something that touched you in an experience? Like, what's the catalyst to wanting to solve
Yeah.
that problem?
You see the Physarum everywhere. Like a lot of people are doing those simulations, mostly in 2D, obviously. I think Vincent House did like a 3D simulation of it back in like
In Unity, kind of,
few years
probably.
ago. In where?
In Unity or in TouchDesighner?
No, in TouchDesighner.
Okay.
And I think another person, but they didn't share it. They because I think there's a 2D Physarum that is inside the Generative website
Okay.
that you can play around with, and I played around with, and it's like really cool. I think I also posted some stuff with it, but it was always on my mind. Someday I have to do it 3D. I want to see it like has a volume. Like I want to turn it around and see what's going on.
You want that third dimension, bro.
I want the third dimension, yeah, and I didn't know how to do it until I figure out how to deal with like 3D textures and stuff like this that I can show also later.
Yeah. Just as a side note, Physarum, what it is, it's the kind of the microorganism of the mushroom. So kind of the
it's like
it's a mold, but it's a kind of
it's like growing the algorithm. The guy that made the article about the algorithm, it's like very it's like very precise. Like you have like rules that you need to apply, and those particles apply to this rule.
Yeah, it's kind of the it's the way that mold will populate and go outwards, kind of like cellular automata, but specifically for mycelium networks, because it's like kind of like the mushrooms. They have their like way of growing, but under the ground they have extreme networks that can go for kilometers, sometimes miles. And the kind of like the concept of how they grow in the fashion that they grow is the Physarum polycephalum is the actual full thing. I mean, it's just to me, like, this stuff is so fascinating that first of all, it's fascinating that you can quantify it into numbers. That's just like blows my brain, like how, even with all the rules and things, it's just like so weird. But then it just blows my mind that like it actually exists outside of numbers, right? Like you can just go and look at it in the forest floor.
Actually, I need to look at it. I need to find a real Physarum.
It's hard. I think it's under the ground, but you can probably grow it in your house. Just get like some mold and put it in a dish.
Yeah.
The next iteration of UV is
maybe I have a mold in my
yeah, exactly. Just look for mold.
I don't know.
That's like some like some thriller movie or something of like the guy who's losing his mind and he sees patterns everywhere or something. Like
this is me, man. This is me.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
For sure.
No, sometimes I do lose my mind. It's like it happens.
I'm sure you got to lose your mind to find your mind. That's for sure. Okay, nice. So UV, let's jump into your project. I'm super excited to see what you got for us. We're gonna let you take it away. I'm not 100% sure what you have, so I'm very excited to see together with everybody. Ooh, let's go. Okay, I'll let you take it away.
All right. So let's start with this one that you're seeing over here. It's this network. So as I've mentioned before, it's like this technique that I'm using a lot, which is basically manipulating the z-axis, or basically z-axis of a grid, of points. So it starts by basically creating a grid of points, which is basically the right name for it. It's like a UV, but it's also like you can call it a grid of points. And with like this reorder top, I'm feeding another texture, which is this one. As you can see, it's very similar to what you're actually seeing here in the panel. So I'm feeding it into the reorder, and like I'm choosing it to be the blue channel, which is in world space. It's the z-axis. So if I will actually put this one, you can basically see that it's like just a grid of points, and the
Very dense,
instances,
very dense grid, right?
Yeah, you can make it even more. It's like
Let's blow up your GPU.
Yeah, no, I have a crazy GPU. I bought the 4090.
Nice.
Yeah, finally.
Nice.
So
just question. Could
yeah,
you could you preview that reorder top as points just so we could see like what's going on with it?
So you see the blue channel, which is this one, and
there you go.
if you see it like points, it's like the same, and I'm just instancing a bunch of like boxes, but of course you can have like different looks. I'm using this. If I get closer, you see it's like looking like it's like very smooth in a way, like the boxes are aligned very nicely, and that's why it's like shiny, because I'm using a PBR material. But because I'm basically rotating it to the z-axis, to the movement. So, but like without the rotation, which is here in the instancing,
interesting.
it's like it will
flat.
be a bit more, yeah.
Interesting. So it's almost like you're rotating. You're almost like you're looking at it's not the camera, but you're looking at the Z value, and then you're rotating
Kind of, because I'm using here. I'm using I'm taking from the position. I'm using a slope, and what a slope does, it's like basically calculating in between frames, the difference between frames, and if you basically so if you use it, it's basically rotating the boxes to
based
the direction of the movement of the movement where they move. So
fascinating.
of course they move they move in the z-axis, so it's like making it like more flat and like yeah.
Could
and
you do
if you use noise after the slope, you see it's like something else.
Interesting.
And of course you can
fascinating.
You can play with the PBR, with the roughness and like the metallic. And
question, UV, if I would connect that slope to the camera position, would it start would it kind of give me a little bit more, like because when you're looking at it from top down, it looks like a mesh. This is I think this is the first thing I said to you when I first
like this.
Yeah, it looks like a mesh. It doesn't look like points. But the moment you start going from the side, like looking from the side, from like an angle, then you do start to see like even more, given more like a 90 degree. You start seeing you start seeing the points, right?
You see the points.
So if you would make that slope the position of the camera, would that kind of maybe rotate the points to always be like
I know what you mean.
You know what I'm saying?
Like
I don't know.
Like
have you
more dense?
More
like
dense?
More dense.
Have you tested that?
Not really.
Interesting.
But I think like if you make like if you have a crazy GPU and you will make like millions, and I don't know, like maybe let's pump it up. Let's see what's.
Let's go. Then you start.
No, you still see them, of course.
Yeah, you still see them. I just wonder because like from when you're looking at it top down, that slope that you're talking about really makes it so that you don't see the individual points because they're really like
Yeah.
you're just seeing the face of each cube versus like
Yeah.
seeing each cube individually. I just wonder. I'm gonna play with it and I'll get back to you on that
Yeah.
one. Continue,
Basically,
please.
you can do the same with like you have this height map.
Okay, like a depth map.
You know what a
Yeah,
height map?
yeah.
Like a depth map
Displacement.
inside a PBR or like the inside the font material. You have like the normal map and the
Right.
height map. So I think you can achieve the same thing. Like with just like you can take like a grid, like an actual sub, and basically
Displace or height.
displace it with the same the same texture.
Right.
Like I think it's like it's the same kind of like way to do it, but because it's like particles or like boxes and instances, you get like you can get like more from my experience. You can get much more diverse looks,
Right.
and you
Organic.
lay around more organic and more, yeah.
Also,
So basically, the system is all about like creating this texture, like and like this is the fun part, over here, to create the actual texture. Yeah.
the noise
Yeah,
texture.
you had a question?
No, I was just gonna
The
say that.
noise or the feedback or
I was gonna say that if you would displace a plane, you wouldn't get as you would start getting tearing and the part
Right,
the
right.
topology would break.
Yeah.
So
And
you might
it's
be able to
also
get.
much more heavier, I think, because
I
you
think
will
so
need
too.
to have like
You need to
a
render
very
it.
dense grid.
Yeah.
Like, you need to have like a lot of like points inside the grid, and this one is like getting pretty heavy.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
So yeah, this technique of like slope, it's very useful. I've actually learned it from Neuron, the dude that we were talking about.
Yeah.
Artem, his name is.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's like something that I'm using a lot. Let's move on to the next one. Actually, I think it's like the same technique.
Ooh, Jesus.
Yeah, this one it's like also something that I really love
So cool.
to play with. So you see, it's like the same thing. Here like I'm just building the UV, the grid of points with the with the two ramps. This is like a pocket at 12 technique or like knowledge. And I'm creating another texture over here, so it's also playing around with the feedback loop and eventually creating this nice, I don't know how to call it, like
It's like a reaction diffusion kind of.
reaction
It's like
diffusion, but
some
like,
sort of reaction diffusion. Cell
Yeah,
shaded reaction diffusion of some sort.
yeah, but the way I render it, I think it's like it makes it like look more 3D-ish kind of like or more organic.
Totally.
And of course you can switch between different like input. Here I'm like using like just a
Ooh,
simple
wow.
ramp,
Love it.
like a
Love
circular ramp.
it.
And here I think it's like kind of like this ramp, when it's like coming from above.
Yeah.
And actually there's a lot to play around with this. Like here in the Blur you can like make it more
Cool.
more dense,
Yeah. So what is making this texture? Can we get deeper into it, or is it?
like you can see it's coming from like the input. It's like, actually, to be honest, I'm just experimenting with feedback. So in these techniques, compared to the Physarum, for example, which you need to know exactly what you're doing, here it's like I don't know what I'm doing. You know, I'm like just like putting some tops and like feedback loop
See
and
what
like
happens.
this kind of like slope and displace, which all it's like a lot of like combined with packet at 12 techniques and like other tutorials around there in YouTube that I probably watch them all, and like it's like just things that stuck in your brain, so you just do it, you know, and
Yeah,
like you
of
play
course.
around,
Play around.
you put like a composite and you composite it and you just experience, and it's also really fun, you know, because
Yeah.
suddenly you get to a result you like and you're like, whoa, wow, I don't know how I got to it, but it's like looks good.
Totally.
um
Especially with noise. I mean, noise is just so explorative. You know, it's such a fun thing to play
Yeah.
with.
yeah, so in the beginning it's just a noise, you know.
Yeah.
Like this is a noise, and it's like going inside like another noise, so it gives it like more details, you know. And here you have like the feedback loop, and like you blur it and you displace it, and then here I'm like basically taking the feedback top itself and like adding more tops inside and like
Oh, I didn't even
displacing
notice
it.
that it's going backwards. I didn't know. I thought that it was coming
Yeah,
from there.
so it's like
So that feedback is really just a feedback of a noise. That like the original, not the original, but the first part of it is just a noise feedback, huh? And you're getting these
yeah,
crazy patterns just from that,
I think the crazy parts actually are coming
from the
because
small
of
pieces of
this
the noise.
of this noise. Yeah, if I think if I let's see,
Ah,
they're still
no, it's
coming, but
still interesting.
I think when you add this kind of noise, you see they have like more
Yeah,
kind of grainy vibe.
yeah.
Um,
Super cool.
I'm not sure really how the kind of like reaction diffusion are coming from, and maybe
Yeah,
from
where
this blur basically.
it
But
must be.
yeah, it's this blur.
It's got to be the blur. Yeah.
Because
Super
like
cool.
reaction diffusion, basically the math behind it, it's
Yeah.
like blurring the texture and then sharpening,
Yeah, it's
and then feedbacking it.
and then
So
feedbacking.
and
It's actually it's
what's
even like a blur and a
pixelate
sharpen
also.
is very specific for cool.
Yeah,
Is very specific for like visual representation, but reaction diffusion,
Yeah.
all it is you remove something and then bring something back, and then it creates this, and then in a feedback or over time, it creates this this pattern. Say
Yeah.
that's
I
how
mean,
it
if
works
you want
in
to, if
no,
sorry.
please.
No,
What were you gonna
I
say?
meant like if you want to go like deeper into like what's actually what you're doing when you're blurring a texture and what you're doing when you're like sharpening a texture, it's like mathematical concepts
Of
basically.
course.
Like blurring, it's basically averaging
Right.
the pixels, and
Right.
sharpening, it's the opposite. It's like it's called like convolve. It's like convolving.
It's
I
the
think there's
going
actually
backwards.
a top. Yeah, yeah. There's a convolve top. You see here. So, like I think if you go inside the palette actually, and
There's a sharpen. It's in
there's a
generators, I think,
sharpen.
or image filters.
Yeah.
Image filters.
Image filters, sharpen, and you go inside. What it is, it's basically just a convolve top. You see.
Interesting.
Which is like a mathematical operation, which is kind of complicated, but I don't know if I can explain it. I don't know if I do know how to explain it. Yeah,
I think you did a good job. Like the blur is averaging and the sharpening is kind of doing the opposite.
It's kind of
where
the opposite, yeah.
It's instead of averaging, it's taking all the information around it and kind of averaging it inwards instead of outwards. Maybe
Yeah,
in
I know it. You know
some esoteric way. I love this. First of all, I need this project. You got to send it to me. That's just like, let's start there. And
of course.
of course,
You got it.
I love it. I love it.
And it's also both of them are in my Patreon, so you can find it already.
Okay, cool. So I already have it. I love the like you're saying, like the explorative kind of nature of the whole thing is so fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like besides for just changing parameters, you know, like you're saying, okay, you understand the convulsion. You might not be able to explain it properly, but you understand it. You can now.
Yeah, but I didn't use it in this particular
No,
project. I didn't use
I
the
know,
sharpen because I know I need to convolve. You know, it's
Right.
like randomly selected. You know.
For sure. But having the understanding of how the system works allows you to play with it at a higher level, right?
For sure.
I mean, anybody could just move sliders and just throw nodes in and see what happens, and that's fine. That's definitely a form of exploration. But understanding the what you're exploring is very interesting.
Yeah. Also, I think you okay. I built this I built this system, and I was like playing around with all the tops and nodes that I put inside, and I remember, okay, this top, if I don't know, if I go inside the wait, sorry. So I know what the slope is doing, right? I played around with it. All right. So I'm keeping in my mind, okay, now I know what the slope is doing. I know what the blurry is doing. And actually it makes it easier if you want to make it audio reactive, because you know you can
Of course.
kind of map, you know, the chops of the audio to
the parameters. You know? Yeah, not only audio reactive, by the way, just in general, if you want to have a show and control
any data.
any controlling, you know,
any
for
controlling,
me as a VJ, as a visual, you know, audio reactive is very important, but it's choosing the parameters that I want to control, right? I could have 100 parameters exposed and I'm going to get lost, but it's like those 5-6 parameters that I'm going to want to play with on my MIDI. I'm going to want to get auto reactive. That's where like the understanding what you're doing is important, right?
Yeah, for sure.
This is so cool, dude. I love this. And the global illumination is so nice.
The Physarum. Yeah, I really like the attractors. Actually, I was like I've started, like when I started building it, I knew how to do like one attractors. Like I knew how to do several attractors, but the effect of this how do you call it? Like the light or the
global illumination or whatever, you know, emissive lighting or something like that.
Emissive, yeah. So it's not really emissive. Basically, I'm coloring the particles based on the distance from the attractor. So it's not actually light from the spheres. So I knew how to do it like in you know, with one attractor, because I'm using, let's go inside.
Whoa.
It's like a huge system. Yeah, it's a huge system. So here I'm doing like the coloring, right? Like this is the top of the colors. I knew how to do it with one attractor, but with several, it was like
more complicated.
More complicated. So actually, I'm using a replicator.
Oh, smart.
So it's like just like a bunch of code of like the actual attractor. And it's like if you can increase the amount of attractors, there's another replicator that replicates the attractor code, you know?
Yeah, for that
and
specific attractor.
Yeah, and then I'm adding all the textures, like the force, the colors, everything into like one texture.
Interesting.
Probably there's a way to do it with like inside the code itself, like like one code, but it's like a really nice component, this replicator.
What I love about this, I mean, I love a lot of things about it, but is it a collision that's pushing the lines, or is it like almost like a, because it looks like it's like it's definitely not intersecting, but it's like it's such a natural thing. Like it's so weird. It's so weird.
You're
like
talking about the attractors or the
the way that
the particles
no
itself?
the attractors, the way that they push the particles and the things around. It's such a cool effect. It's like almost like a fluid simulation of some sort. You know, because they're obviously.
I think. Yeah, they're like kind of touching it, and like
touching
it's
it,
not like
pushing
exploding.
Yeah,
it's
so cool.
Like kind of pushing. I mean, you can make it stronger, but it's like might like make it like much more crazy. Let's see. You see, it's like jumping out of the bounds.
Right. I just
So it's a
love how the
bit
Physarum
messy.
has like this. It's almost like a chain physics, you know, where they're like always connected.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's super cool.
Yeah, and of course there's a lot of parameters here, and you can like
Yeah.
make it like more, you
Whoa,
know.
dense. Oh my god, dude. So cool. How long did it take you to implement this into like an actual working talks?
Um, Maybe for something like a week and a half. Like the minute of when I
Wow.
actually no, I started like maybe a month ago. With because it's based on like 3D texture. But I didn't succeed it, so I left it, you know, and then I came back to it. Maybe I slept over and it's like something happened during I was sleeping and it's like
Right. You figured it out.
it clicked, you know,
Yeah, of course.
and yeah, I made it. So here you can see it basically. Maybe I will explain in 1 minute what's happening here.
Please.
So there's
Give
like
us a rundown.
there's like like a particle system with tops, you know. There's a bunch of other particle systems like this. But the way the Physarum works, it's basically the particles itself, when you render them, let's say in a 2D simulation, they have like a trail, right? They're building this kind of trail, like here. There's like a trail, right? So the way they move, it's based on the trail itself. So you take the trail when you render it, and you feed it back to the simulation, and based on the amount of trail, each particle is moving to another direction. So you can't you can't render like a 3D trail in a way, like you will render like a 2D trail. So for that you need a 3D texture, because like the trail itself, you see it, it's inside like a 3D texture. And then I'm feeding it back to the simulation. This is like the GLSL top of the simulation, and I'm feeding it back over here. And I'm doing a bunch of crazy math to actually say to each particle, based on the trail, where to move. Yeah, I hope it was like clear. It's complicated. Complicated shit.
It's definitely complicated shit. I think it's clear. The only thing I didn't understand is what you're feeding back into the simulation.
Yeah.
Like, where is it coming from originally? Like, what is giving the points their movement?
Yeah. So, okay. So basically each particle over here, the points, gets like a bunch of like points, which are like just like cubes or whatever. Yeah. Each point has like sensors around them. What do I mean by sensors? It's like just another agent or another particle. Okay. So I'm basically rendering. I'm not rendering, but I'm calculating for each point for other particles that are basically
Around
positioned around it. Yeah. In different angles. You can control the angles.
Interesting. Can you visualize that?
And actually, I need to visualize it.
Yeah, like a debug kind
right
of thing.
now, right? Yeah, definitely.
So
it's
sorry,
something
continue.
that
So each particle has 4 particles around it.
So 4 particles, which we call like sensors, right? And basically the particles, they're sensing the trail. What I mean by trail is like the kind of like the density that the other particles are leaving behind them. Right? Like a particle is moving, but it's like leaving around them the trail, basically, you know. And the goal of the sensors is to detect where is the maximum trail. like the actual value of the amount of trail. Like a trail, it's basically a pixel, which is like from 0 to 1, let's say. All right. So where the sensor is located is like looking where is the maximum trail, and when it finds it, so the particle itself that the sensor is like
attached to
around it, attached to, is rotated in a different direction, basically.
So it's not even a force. It's literally just, it's always going forward, but
force.
it's changing its direction. That's it.
Basically, yeah.
Wow.
That's it. Like it's going
crazy.
always. It's basically, you're right. It's going always forward.
Right.
And when a sensor senses the maximum,
Then it changes its direction.
Okay, let's say like the right sensor senses the maximum, so it will turn right. If the left sensor, if the upper or down,
right,
it will go up and down. And you can theoretically you can add like 10
more
sensors.
Right. Nah, but you don't need to. You don't need to, because I guess you just have 4 is enough to average in between to go in different angles and stuff.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, 6 degrees of freedom is like the classic kind of like thing, but
Yeah.
I think
I think it's like 6 over here actually.
it must be, right. It must be, because I mean, you're not getting.
I think I had like, I think because I updated to 6.
But technically, you only need 3 because it's rotation. You're not actually changing the direction.
Here I have 4.
You have 4?
Here I have only 4. Yeah.
Interesting. So what is it? Angle X, angle. I was super interested. Sensor angle X.
Yeah, we can
so you
go
have
inside
2 for
the code if you want.
You have 2 for the X and 2 for the Y?
Where are you seeing it?
Oh, I see.
Like
Rotate.
sensor.
I'm looking at the sensor angle dot X.
This is like the rotation. This is like the rotation matrix.
Got you.
Which is like where when I want to actually rotate the particles, I'm just multiplying the direction with rotation matrix. And these are the sensors. So the sensors are like positions in the agent. The agent is the actual particle. So they are positions. The position is the particle position plus
the direction
sensor
of the agent.
offset and the direction. Yeah. So
Fascinating. Yeah, we don't have to get too much into code. I just love seeing those like little things. You know, it's just very cool to see. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of more questions about this.
This is also on my Patreon. You can grab it and like look it up. Like there's a lot of interesting stuff. I think, not like more technically.
How it all comes together.
In a way, yeah.
Question. So the attractors, can you change their forces to be like let's say instead of just collision, can you do it that they're like radial force like in or radial force out, or vortex forces? Not yet.
Not yet. Like I can do it like a minus here, and then they're like basically
sucking in.
Attract, not repulse. Yeah. Doesn't really.
It's hard to see.
Really
I guess because they're following their path, right? You'd have to actually infuse it into the. But I guess the same way that you're infusing like the pushing of the particle, you would probably be able to affect like the actual movement with like a sucking in or like an attraction force. Okay, version 2.
But you know the attractors weren't like the focus of that was like basically a bonus.
An addition, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like something that kind of easy to do. You know, it's not something complicated. Mathematically.
Yeah. Okay, another question. The shape of the Physarum, it's a sphere right now, and is it easy to switch it out?
Yeah, for sure. It's like you have like a boundary shape, so you can switch to
a box.
To a box.
Cool.
For now, it's just like a box and a sphere.
And a sphere. What was the limit that I saw?
Oh, there's a limit. So the limit, it's basically acting like a box. Like the box, it's like kind of like a limit, but with a loop. You know, when if the particle, let's say if the particle is like getting outside of the bounds here, so it will jump right here.
Oh, fascinating.
looping.
That's so
Yeah, loop.
crazy. So
But if it's
literally,
like a
what?
limit,
Wait a second. You're telling me
Yeah.
that in that box situation, it's going in a loop from like the
Yeah.
side to the side and top to bottom?
it's like when you put a limit stop, you have the options of like clamp, loop, or zigzag.
Right.
So
right.
looping, it's like looping.
That's crazy. That's so cool.
So you see, if I put like a limit and a zigzag, so you see the actual box. You can see more like the edges of the box.
So in the limit situation, are they just like when they reach the edge, they're just sticking to the edge?
So in the limit, the zigzag, it's like basically if they are if like the particle is like on the edge, like on the face of the box, it will just return back, kind of like to the opposite direction.
Cool.
And the clamp, it's like it will just stick into the
At the edges.
into the stick. But I like it also like this because you can see the actual box. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The
Are
faces.
you gonna
which is
work
nice.
on like a custom boundary, like a so like let's say
So yeah, I know.
interaction or like a mesh face?
So it's a very complicated thing to do, to be honest. I've
The
tried it
boundary?
out, but I've tried to do like that. You can basically put like any mesh, for instance. Like you can just put like a sphere or like a tube, let's say, and then it will basically be the boundaries. But mathematically, it's like a bit complicated. Like not that complicated. It's possible, but I didn't get into it. Like I was like happy with this result, But I'm for sure gonna improve it and like make it more with like more options. Also, one thing that I don't like, you see when I reset it, so it's like slowly decaying. It's like decaying a bit fast. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It goes. It like eventually runs out.
It's like kind of running out. So
Is that just
this is something that I need to.
You need to fix?
I don't know why I need it. It need a fix. Yeah, basically.
Interesting.
You can see also like
Oh wow.
these kind of
That's
shapes.
sick. Yeah. Can you change the size of the box? Like so I can make like a thinner box? Is there like a
Yeah,
oh there you go.
Like if
There's
you
a
want,
size,
you can have
like a rectangle or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm just
And
thinking
of course, you have like the rendering. You have the rendering. So now I'm like rotating it.
Right.
And you can like change the particle size, make it bigger.
Interesting.
You can not render if you don't want to render.
I'm just I'm always thinking about. I told you this when we spoke a few days ago, but I'm always how do I use this in mapping? That's always like my biggest question.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of a lot of ideas. This is amazing, Yuvi.
We can start a project together, man.
We are going to. What do you mean we can? The fuck you talking about? What else you got for us? Or do you want to linger on here longer?
more.
Do you want to linger on the Physarum
No,
longer? Was it anything else you wanted to show us there?
I think I have like this ray marching projects.
Okay. Oh
this
yes.
is actually our Physarum, but actually ray marched. So if I go inside of here,
So it's that easy to change out the rendering of it, huh?
yeah, because basically
It's just a
the
3D
ray
texture.
marching, it's like with 3D texture. So if I go inside, if you remember, this is like the 3D texture of the
Right.
trail.
Right.
So I'm just taking it out and like ray marching it
Instead of
blurring
rendering
a
it
bit.
Instead of rendering it
Yeah.
as instances, you're just taking it out and rendering it as
you
a
can
ray march.
actually if I wait, where did I go? Okay, I can render it with like you can see the actual
Interesting.
the actual particles. Oops.
Interesting.
You can see it here. You can see it's
Yeah.
like, this is like the instancing,
Uh-huh.
and this is like the ray march.
Huh.
It's like the same kind of, maybe it's like rotated differently.
Yeah.
But like, the ray march technique that I'm using, it's like having this look of like, like kind of like transparent, but not really transparent.
Subsurface scattering.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And of course you can also play around with like the shadows and whatever. Like
Super cool.
I'm basically I'm developing like this component of ray marching to share it also in Patreon, but it still like has a lot of problems that I don't want to share. Like there's like kind of like how do you say, like for example the Physarum, it's not perfect, but I've actually shared it, because I know people can use it, and like
And play with it.
there won't be any like major problems.
Yeah.
But here I have some small stuff that I still need to fix, and of course it's also time to record. Like you're recording this podcast, it's like time to explain and like to think how to explain to people that are not
Documentation or tutorials.
And like I mean to actually understand the ray march, you need to understand 3D textures. So I need to see how I will manage it.
Is that Blur 3D? Is that something that you made, or is that from the palette?
This is from Vincent House, actually.
It's from Vincent. Okay.
Yeah, but I've made a bunch of other 3D textures tops. Actually, I don't think I have it. No, I don't have it here. Like simple things like like I don't know, if you have like a noise, for example. So you could have a 3D noise, 3D texture noise, okay? And you want to displace it, let's say. All right. So I built like not a lot, but a couple of like operators that actually can deal with 3D textures. Because if I put here a 3D texture, it will crash because it's not supposed to take a 3D texture.
3 vectors and 2 vectors.
Yeah. So you can create volumes like with tops like this. And just put like a 3D texture. 3D texture top, where are you? Where is
hiding.
it? Yeah, texture 3D. And just like, if I put it inside, so you see basically you can see my noise.
Right.
Yeah,
but it's missing the Z value, right?
Yeah, it's like the same kind of like...
change the lighting maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not looking really good.
Just move the light in front of it instead of from the side. I think it should be okay.
Something like this.
maybe not. Bad idea for
the
me.
lighting here. You see the lighting here. It's like but you see like kind of like the noise is moving in the Z direction.
Right. But it's almost like it's missing the Z, right? It's almost like...
Of course, because it's like it's the same texture inside the 3D texture.
Right.
It's
Interesting.
still a volume,
Right, but it's not actually 3 dimensions.
Yeah, but if you have like 3D texture tops, you can actually build volumes,
So I mean, technically, you could just add another noise, and then reorder it to be the Z. Would that create more interest?
Here,
or you're
in
saying
the 3D texture?
Yeah, or no?
No, because it's like it works different. It's like basically what happens here. It's like each texture here. It's like a slice of the Z-axis, right?
Right.
So you can't it's a 3D UV. you know it. You know, so
3D UV.
yeah,
Fascinating, really fascinating.
yeah. Maybe
it's so-
one more last example. It's like this smoky.
Smoke.
This
What
is
you're working on, right?
race. Yeah, which it's
Cool.
really nice. I think it's also like gray marching, but there's like this 3D texture, fluid, smoky simulation.
Can we look into that for a second? Could you go into there for a second?
It's a big mess, but yeah.
Wow.
So actually, it's based on Three Dashes. It's
No.
a really nice dude that he did like this. It's a very famous fluid simulation using like GLSL inside TouchDesighner. It's
Yeah,
like
the classic
free
one.
tutorial.
Yeah.
The classic. So this is basically the same structure he's using, but instead of 2D textures, I'm using 3D textures. So like I had to basically change all the calculations and basically expand it into 3 dimensions.
Wow.
And I was working on it like a few months ago, and it was so like, I didn't understand why it's not working, and finally,
You had a long night, a good night's sleep.
Yeah. So it's looking good, but it's still, it has some. You see, like there's like kind of like when it's like moving to the edges, it's like coming back, kind of looping, which is like not supposed to do it. Because in fluid, you have this kind of like boundaries
box.
that this is what makes a fluid or smoke more like dense,
Yeah. You don't lose it.
So I'm working on it, and it's also, if you zoom in, you don't see the actual, you lose a lot of details. Yeah, but I don't know, it's fun. It's for me, it looks nice,
I love it. I
Good
love all
enough.
the stuff that you just showed us. Super, super cool. Wow, Yuvi, thank you so much for showing us into your world, into your process. I urge everybody to go to Yuvi's Patreon. There is just extremely good information. He posts very regularly. And basically, all the things we just saw are available on his Patreon. You can literally download them now. Well, finish the podcast first, but after the podcast, you can go download them and start playing with it today. Follow him on Instagram so that you can find out more information and ask him questions. He's very responsive. All right, so we're going to go now into the second part of the podcast, into a little bit more, a little bit more esoteric. We're going to get into the Israel conversation, which is going to be fun. Let's start with a little bit. Yeah, we'll fall asleep with the Israel conversation. Before we get there, I want to just touch on something that we've spoken about briefly here in this podcast and also in a previous conversation that we had. I think somebody's vacuuming at the moment. Art and kind of tech art, and kind of like what is the driving force of this whole thing. I kind of gave you an example from my own life of like, I started off as an artist, kind of pursuing film and wanting to be an artist, being recognized as an artist, and then kind of realizing that doesn't really mean anything. And again, I shouldn't say it like that. Realizing that it's not important to me to be an artist. What's more important for me is to solve problems, find solutions, and make things beautiful, right? And inspire people. The way that I inspire people is through color, through movement, through beauty, right? So those kind of things I realized this at an early start to my career, and it expanded into where I'm at right now, where I'm like, I'm still creating art and I'm still doing VJ and visuals, but most of what I'm doing is creating softwares and systems and problem solving and finding solutions to problems. And I speak about it a lot in this podcast about the idea of like this creative itch that a lot of us have of like wanting to create. For you, it seems like the creative itch is like wanting to understand, right? But it's still a creative itch. It's still an itch of like, it's like the backwards itch of like, I want to create things. I want to be creative. And you're like, I want to understand things so that I can be creative. It's like this kind of a very interesting dichotomy. And I think for me, it's like, I want to be creative so that I can understand things. It's like almost like this beautiful loop of knowledge. So with all that being said, I'm just interested to kind of like, what is your relationship to art? What is your relationship to, tech art or being being technical? And how does it relate to you and in your life?
Yeah. So yeah, it's like very new, to be honest. Like visuals and like visual art weren't in my life until I started with TouchDesighner. It's like not something I've actually exposed to. I remember, these days when you go to parties, and mostly trans parties, or every party, every event has like part of the show. It's like visuals, or like more. If you go more into the museums and like more exhibitions, everything is around like technology and like visual combined, and sensors and everything, and it's something very new that I'm actually, it's like maybe 2-3 years, but I think it's like I got to this kind of scene when it's like very in the hotspot,
But it's blowing
I think, I don't know, like kind of like, I don't know,
100%, dude, 100%.
Yeah, like now you see it everywhere. It's like, I mean, it's in Israel, it's like still slow, to be honest. Like I wish I had more opportunities to show my art, or to do more like actual exhibitions,
yeah,
or interactive stuff, which is also nice. So yeah, I think I've kind of got lucky because I was in the right moment, in the right place, in the right motivation to combine my skills and like to create things that apparently people like. And with it, I was also exposed to beautiful other artists that I'm following and like I'm admiring their art, and it's kind of like a loop when you see someone posted something really nice, so you were like, wow, I have to make it also, or to get inspired with, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful loop, it's like I feel that I can live like this for years, in this kind of position. And hopefully, I will have more paid projects, and then I will actually can earn some money, and actual to make it my actual work, and to do what I want and to live with it. This is the dream.
The dream is to be able to live and kind of support
I mean, it's
yourself.
not the dream, but like it's like it will be nice to actually make to do paid projects and to make a living with it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, this is with all due respect, you're very green. You just started, and that doesn't mean anything negative. It's more just like it's less about the actual product, like it's less about your art being new. It's more about, for you as a person, navigating this world and understanding where do I fit
it's
in,
very
where
new
do
for
I,
me.
very new, and it's exciting. I'm excited for you, you know, because I feel like you have a lot of avenues open in front of you, you know, that aren't necessarily like, you're not necessarily stuck in like, oh, I'm a 3D artist, or oh, I'm a touch designer artist. You have a lot of options. And I think that it's a really fun place to be, where you have a lot of options, but you know what is like enjoyable. Like you have all these options, but you're like, oh, I like this one. I like this one. I like this one. I really, I miss that in my life, you know? And like a big hack for life is like always being in that situation where you have a lot of options and you find and choose the options that are good for you. You know, it's it's not always easy, obviously, but I think that that's kind of like the game of life, is really utilizing that and having it kind of, no matter where you are in your career or in your work, you always have the option to do multiple things, and you find the ones that make you happy. I think that's kind of like what I would suggest.
I totally agree. Totally agree. And excited, and I'm excited to you know,
to figure things out.
Figure it out, and to learn more, and to you know, I don't know if TouchDesighner it will be the only software that I will be using.
Whoa, bro, chill.
No, and I'm saying Houdini, you know, I'm saying other
you would
stuff.
be so good at Houdini. Oh my God, you would love it.
Yeah.
You would love it.
Yeah, maybe someday I will start learning it.
You should never be stuck in a software. The software should be like, the software is a tool. If I need a hammer, if I have a hammer, I could use it for a lot of things, right? But it might not be the best tool to like screw in something, right? TouchDesighner is awesome
because
you're
a hammer yourself, man.
I'm a hammer myself. I can't help it. But TouchDesighner is awesome because it's like every tool in the tool shed, you know, and it's like, you know,
and also for people like me that actually likes to develop their own like, systems, you know,
real time,
so it's
instant feedback.
No, man, the real time, it's something that it's like obviously like the most powerful thing in TouchDesigners, right? This is TouchDesigners, real time, period, you know.
100%. And and you know, this is the trend, by the way, in art, in 3D, in generative, in anything to do with visualization. It's
because
all,
you want to control it live. You want to be able to
perform, but not only like as an artist who doesn't perform, being able to see what I'm doing while I'm doing it is huge.
Oh yeah,
you know, it's huge, especially in 3D. You have to wait sometimes a week to see what you're doing.
So I don't know this. You know, I did experiencing waiting to render something.
Very lucky, man. Yeah, I think that the position that you're in and the kind of path that you're on is so good, and I'm super excited to see where it goes, and I hope that I'll be able to help you as well along your path. I just think that some people, it's not even about being talented, it's about having a drive. I think that some people have like this inherent, like you said, like this inherent want and need to understand things, and I think that I'm happy that you found this instead of like, I don't know, some science or whatever, or some, you know, some discipline, or electrical engineering, you know, so that it can people like you help community and help push forward kind of like art and these kind of like generative ideas, because it's people like you who have this drive and obviously you know, the ability and talent to actually do things with it. So we're very lucky in the TouchDesigners community to have you, and I hope that you stick around.
I hope, man. I really hope. Thank you so much, man. It's like really nice to hear this. I'm a shy person generally, you know. I don't usually. You know, it's embarrassing to me. Like, not embarrassing.
I know. It's flattering or uncomfortable. You're
like,
humble. You're a humble person. It's hard to hear that you're... I want to talk about one thing we talked about at the beginning of the interview before we get to the lovely conversation about Israel. And we're doing it at the end, by the way, so that if it goes off the rails, we can cut it out. So that's great. Leave the best for last. I wanted to just, because you said something really interesting at the beginning of the interview about perfection. This is the thing that I forgot when we were talking. You were talking about perfection and kind of how perfection can, in some ways, push you forward. And I was kind of saying sometimes perfection can actually, pull you back. And then you were talking about music and things like that. It just kind of reminded me, Mantis Smash, a good friend of mine, Nathan, who actually made the music for the intro.
Wait.
Nathan?
I know the artist.
The artist. Yeah, Mantis Smash.
It's like dubby bits,
glitch,
vibes,
dub,
glitch,
drum and bass. Yeah, he's the best. I love him. Big fan. But we have had this conversation a lot. We've worked a lot together. I made a music video for him like 5 years ago, and I never released it. And how do I say this in the nicest way possible? But basically, what was the reason that was not released was this idea of perfection. And this is, kind of in a previous version of my life where I was kind of striving for this perfection. And him as a musician, he was like, he couldn't even understand like me wanting to release something that wasn't polished, that wasn't fully 100%. And it kind of made me think to myself like, oh, this is like it's not about him being a perfectionist, but it's about his craft needs to have this kind of like extreme mastering kind of idea, because he's releasing an album, right? He's releasing an album. I'm just releasing clips and doing live streams and mapping, and it's very ephemeral. It's very like, this is just for the moment, right? Just this is the moment. And he was thinking like in his eyes, music is like, it's not ephemeral, right? It's like forever, right? Like this track is now this track and that's it. And I kind of, I think that you can't, you can, but it's, and I think that in the visual world, it's, there is some allegory to like loops, if you make like loop packs or if you're selling kind of like loops. But it was a really good lesson for me, because what happened is like, I was like, okay, this is it. I'm done. Send it to him. And he's like, oh, I love it. It's so cool. But he's like, I don't remember exactly the words that he used, so I'm paraphrasing. And Nathan is the sweetest, nicest guy. He's like just a really good friend of mine, so we had this kind of conversation. But he said to me like, oh, like it's not polished, or he's something along those lines of like, it's not finished. He's like, is it finished? And I'm like, well, I just spent like, 40 hours on this thing. It better be finished, But his like way of looking at it kind of turned me off of like feeling that it's finished. And then life came, and I just never touched it again. And and then the version of I was using Notch, and the version changed, and then the whole thing broke, and the project doesn't work. And then this is like so 5 years later.
Basically, it's lost.
No, it's not lost. I have the render of like the most recent render, like the last render that I did, and I have the project, but I'm not gonna jump into it again because it's so old now. But I'm gonna release it as it is 5 years later, even though it's not finished, because of this struggle of perfection that I've kind of hopefully been trying to understand better in my life. Of like, what is something. What does something finished mean? What does something perfect mean?
But perfection, perfection, it's something objective. How do you say?
Subjective.
Like it's subjective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. That's why it's not a real thing.
Yeah. Definitely. But, I think for me, like I figured out that there's the kind of like, okay, it's not looking exactly the way I want, but I worked on it hard.
Intention.
I understand energy. Yeah, I understand what I did. Like I have the power to control it kind of. So it's like, it's good enough. And I know people will like it as it is, like I hope. Well, it's not that I know, but
The goal.
I hope, yeah. And yeah, but I totally understand you, man. It's like something that I think
A lot of
like
us.
a lot of us are dealing with.
Yeah,
And
for sure. For sure. I think also it's like a confidence thing, right? Like I think 5 years ago I was a lot less confident in what I
Yeah.
was doing. And I was like,
yeah,
oh, I'm going to be judged, or I'm going to be, not, it's less about really ridicule. It's more of just like, oh, this is not going to be good enough, right? I'm going to,
Yeah.
it's not good enough. And
Mhm.
I think that as I got older, I realized that this is like you said, perfection is super subjective, and there's like a very distinct scala of like how much time and effort you're putting into a project and what the final result's going to be. And if those are like here, right, you better be getting paid a lot of money because you'll be in it
Of course, yeah.
forever. And if it's like here,
Right.
then, you might want to be like, put more time into it, or like
Yeah.
let it sit longer. And I think that there's like a really nice middle somewhere where it's like you said, I put a lot of time into this. I had a very strong intention. My intention was done, right? Whether my intention was making a Physarum, making a music video, making some simulation, whatever it is. If I reach my intention, then that intention will be infused in the output. And even if the output isn't perfect, it's still going to translate to other
Exactly.
people,
Exactly. It's gonna translate because I mean, maybe I'm getting now more spirituality or
Please.
something. I
Please
mean,
get
like,
spiritual.
but like I that's my intentions. When I like it and I release it and I say it's good enough for me, I want people to see it. Even if I know there's a mistake here or like a pixel that went away or whatever. So I really believe that people will feel it, and like and I know because I know my followers, like my people that
Your
mostly
audience.
the other artists, my audience, my most of them like are people that actually are artists themselves, so we support each other,
Yeah.
and they know they need to support me and I know I need to support them. It's like
Beautiful.
something that we don't talk, people don't talk about it, but it's there,
It's there. Yeah. I think it's the power of community, it's the power of community, and it's something very special in the art world, or especially in like the generative procedural art world, this idea of sharing, this idea of teaching,
Yeah.
this idea of like my information is only as good as the information that I have is only as good as how much I let it out to other people, right? If I keep all the information for
Definitely.
myself, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to move forward. If I release the information, somebody will be inspired, somebody will be interested, somebody will take it and make it better. I'll see what he did. I'll get inspired, this kind of loop, which I think, I'm sure it exists in a lot of other industries. I think it does.
If it wasn't there, I couldn't do my stuff that I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
Like, I did it because I'm a Patreon of Pocket at 12 for like 2.5 years.
Yeah,
A Pocket of like Yuba for like I don't know. Pocket for like a lot of Patreon of a lot of people, that I also there's people that makes free tutorials for sure.
Yes,
Like this is something that I also did in the beginning.
Yeah.
And so it's amazing. No,
It's amazing.
Like it's really amazing.
It's amazing. It's amazing that we live in a time like that. And you spoke about.
I don't know if in other softwares, because you're using other software. I don't know if it's like this in other.
It
community.
depends. It depends. The community, I think, is very like in Blender. There's a big community. Any software that's free
Right.
or that's somewhat open source, like Unreal, there's a big community. A big community. When it comes to like sharing knowledge and information, it depends. I think that Unreal has a marketplace, so there's a lot more of incentive to like sell things, right? And that's fine, as long
Like
as it's like
assets and stuff.
like assets or just like techniques or blueprints or things like that. There is a lot of free things, but most of it is kind of like if you want like a fluid simulation outside of what Unreal gives you, you have to buy it. with Blender, I think that there's a very huge marketplace. And the thing that's nice about Blender is most of the assets, most of the techniques, most of the things that you buy plugins they'll have a free version. They'll have a free version or a stripped down version, and or like a trial. There's a lot of, the idea is like, and also like Blender Marketplace, the assets are like the most expensive things are like $100, $50. You're talking about like $10 here, $10 there, almost like a Patreon kind of vibe. So yeah, I think with other softwares that exist, I just think that when it comes to generative visual audio, when it comes to open-ended network, open-ended frameworks like TouchDesighner, I think that there's a lot more kind of gravitation towards open source and making things available for free. But I don't know if you know, but there's now in the new version of TouchDesigner, or in the new upcoming release, you can actually ship and send toxes that are locked. So a tox.
Oh yeah.
So I'm interested
because you have like a password or something, or like
you have a password, or it's
or...
just code. So I think that there's two sides to that. The positive side is that now people will be more motivated to create tools because they can sell them on a marketplace. Because like TouchDesigner, you would be like, where's the TouchDesigner store? Like there's so many people, so many creators, but there's no marketplace. And I think the reason was because when you sell a thing in TouchDesigner as a tool, anybody can use it, anybody could see it, and there's more motivation to like make a community, to make an audience, because like it makes more sense, right? If you're releasing a tool that I can see how it's made, then we need to have a relationship. It's not just like a customer and a product. There needs to be like a relationship. So Patreon makes a lot of sense. Now with the advent of this locked toxes, I think that there will be more of an interest to make a marketplace. And the downside, obviously, is that, that it could create some sort of disparity between developers and users. But I think that because TouchDesigner is such a community first driven product, community first driven idea, that won't happen. And that anybody who's releasing a tox for like a product and it's locked, then there's a reason for it. Maybe that there's a very simple solution to what they're doing, or maybe it's a very difficult solution to what they did. And I think that the community will still exist. I think that there'll still be, like, if you released Physarum as a locked tox, you would still have a Patreon about how it works. You'd still have, a tutorial series about how to use it. And I think that as long as that's still the vibe, and it's not like, here's a product, just use it, then I think that the trajectory will be very positive, because you'll just have more things to play with.
Interesting. Hopefully it's something that will last.
Yeah, hopefully.
No.
So quickly, I just want to touch on you said spirituality, and you said spirituality, and now I'm all excited. But what is your take on spirituality and belief? And I think that you were talking about like intention, so maybe like manifestation, and kind of like the idea of positive reinforcement and kind of creating your own reality. If was a pogesh otcha, what is it? Where does it meet you?
Spirituality is something that was always there in my life. I think I've kind of lost it in a way. Like it went down when I was after the army. No, sorry. Like after I traveled in India, I was like very into this, and like very trying to figure out what life is in general. And doing some taking some things into my body to make it stronger. And and I lost it a bit. Like I went outside of this world of like asking questions and like digging inside of like, who am I? What is this? What's going on here? Because I think I was studying electrical engineering, you know? It's like the opposite of the opposite, you know, in a way. It's like
In a way, yeah.
connected in a way. Because
You have to really search for it. I would imagine.
Yeah. But but I think recently when I started creating, so the creation itself, it gets you in this state of mind of like, and of course the connection with people, like, you know, I have like
Right.
people that outside of my country that I'm speaking with, and like I'm sharing information, sharing like, I mean, through social media, okay? It also gets like back the fact that there's something bigger that connects us all
That
together,
connects us.
you know?
Yeah.
And now I can say, these days I can say, like, making art, even if it's like the simplest thing that you do, you know, like you don't need to develop a Physarum with like 3D textures or whatever, you know. You can just like do your simple stuff, or like paint an amazing thing, or like just create.
Yeah.
It's not just about art. It's not art. It's not the right word. It's like
You could just go around and sing, right?
Yeah. But to create something that wasn't exist until you created it.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It can be also singing. You can write a song. You can just
I think
sing
it's
also. But like creating something that suddenly exists without being existent before you did it. You know what I mean? It's something that you can say, it's yours. You did it. You don't own it, but you kind of give it birth. This is like something that anyone can anyone needs to do it.
Everybody needs to do
this
it.
Is how, this is how you keep on going, you know?
Yeah.
Life.
Totally. I think you said such nice things. I think that one thing for sure is, you know, the act of creation is in itself God, right? That is literally what God is. That's literally what
This is God.
You know, what nature is.
If you're
right?
talking about God, you know, if you believe in God, I
Oh
don't know,
yeah, no,
but,
I use the word God as a very blanket term for whatever
like
it is that touches
a
you.
big thing, you know.
A big thing, you know, nature, reality, dimension, you know, spirits, whatever you want to use it, psychedelics, whatever.
Yeah, we have the power to create. This is something that a lot of people are forgetting, you know, because you're so busy at living, you know, and
life.
like doing your own. Yeah.
I think it's not only about people forgetting. I think it's also because of the society that we live in doesn't promote this kind of stuff. And I think that because of social media, people see art or artists or whatever as like, oh, I can't do that. Or like, oh, it's too difficult. And really, like, creating is nothing to do with imagery or sound or
it's like
words. It's just expression. It's like when I go and like, this is what I fell in love with, with nature parties with psytrance was I can just go to a party and dance like a crazy person. Nobody's judging me. Nobody's looking at me. Nobody's saying anything about me. Nobody's laughing at me. But the feeling of being able to move my body to the music without thinking, like, that is an act of creation. That's creating, right? I'm creating something new in my body, in my feeling. And that's, to me, that's like a heightened experience. So when you multiply this by, ability and talent not logic, but experience, then you start getting something, big. But like you said, people don't notice that you can do it on a small scale as well. And I think that through the act of just me being at a party and dancing, through the act of me sitting at home singing, a small thing, right? I'm going to create a ripple effect in the reality, in my reality, kind of like manifestation or intention. And I'm going to now be creating. That creation is going to come back to me, whether it's just, that's just how it works, right? A sound goes out, bounces off, comes back. A light goes out, comes back, bounces off, comes back. You know, Ouroboros, this kind of infinite kind of manifestation machine.
And the thing is, like, you have the intention. The intention is it's very important.
It's the steering wheel.
While you're creating, you need to be aware that you're creating right now. You know, you need to fully experience the creation.
Yes.
I mean?
So there's something small now has intention and becomes something very big. 100%.
Yeah.
100%. And I think it's a type of you know, it's like the heart mind connection with the higher power. It's like it's not a straight line. It's a circular, almost like a procedural kind of like noodly kind of thing, right? It's like I feel good from dancing.
Physarum.
I feel good from dancing. My brain feels good from expressing. Then the you know, the godly whatever, the universe gets that expression as good, and then that comes back to me as something good, right? And then you're creating good.
And then the people in the party, when they see you, they get affected. You know,
Of course,
it's like a
of course.
disease.
It's a disease, yeah.
You know?
It's inspiration. It's
look at this guy. It's like
he's having.
look at this guy. He's like having fun. Like it's crazy. Like you know, I want to be crazy.
Right. Totally. And it could even be on the sense of like I don't feel judged, right? So I'm doing all I want. That person maybe is shy or maybe feels like, you know, maybe feels judged, sees me acting that way, and it's like, oh, wait a second, this guy's crazy. I could be crazy now too. Like you said, it's this it's the circular thing. And I think it's not only in these kind of like in these moments, it's also in the art world, the same way of like, you know, all of my art heroes, when I met them, when I became friends with them, they were like my friends. They were like my brothers. My sisters. They wanted to help me become better. They wanted me to be better, right? This kind of like pay it forward attitude is so powerful. It's like with you, it's the same thing. Is like, you know, you're making tutorials and you have a Patreon so that people, and you know, you're obviously not doing it for money because you're not getting rich from it, obviously, right? Like if you were doing it for money, then you would do something else. You're doing it so you can support yourself and sustain it. It's totally legitimate. But the karma energy or the spiritual energy that you're creating in the world, that you're manifesting for other people, is very powerful. You know, I was speaking to Tommy about this tech, that you're creating tools, he's creating tools, you're creating tools that enable people to express themselves. Like
he really built like a community around this tool. This is a different level of like really, like it got so big without the control, you know. I don't know if
he didn't anticipate.
Was intentionally.
No, he wouldn't anticipate.
It was like,
but it's the same thing of small and big. It doesn't matter, right? The act in itself is what it is. And I think that, you know, you I hope you realize the impact that you have on other people, indirectly.
I'm seeing
it.
I'm seeing it, and I'm speaking to my patrons, and I'm seeing people that are sending me questions, and like I was saying, like someone that used one of my technique, but he took it to a different kind of like vibe, you know, totally different. But I can see it's mine, you know. I can see he was using mine, so it was like, wow. This is what I wanted, you know.
This is what you wanted.
Finally, you know, like I don't want you to take and play. I want you to take it and create something else. But like, like I mean, you can do whatever you want with it. It's yours. Like you got it. But like, it's so nice to see like someone that's slowly getting his own vibe and direction and like
confidence,
and style. You know?
Yeah.
So nice.
Amazing. I think that this is a good lead into our last conversation. Kind of like intention, kind of like, you know, spirituality as a concept, not just as like a god or whatever, but like as a you know, I feel good, I do good outside, and then good comes to me, and then it makes the world a better place. Kind of this very simple, basic concept. Israel
Yeah.
is a very interesting place in that sense because, and I want to make sure that like that this conversation and the whole conversation from the beginning, I you know, you as an Israeli, me as an Israeli, I want people to understand that just like well, let me go backwards. I want people to understand that a person and a place are two different things. Okay, a person, a citizen, and a government are two separate things. You can make the argument all day that, you know, democracy is a extension of that kind of thing, and like if a certain government is picked, then that means that the people picked that government. But we know we're not stupid. We know that these things are manipulated, that they're controlled. Democracy is like, it's like the same thing as saying God, right? It's just a concept. It doesn't actually mean anything. Yeah. And it's definitely not implemented in modern society to the extent that it was supposed to. You know, I'm not even going into conspiracy of like, you know, controlling you know, the elections, but like propaganda, controlling media, having tied into money, like those are things that decide elections, not actually like the actual policy, right? So I think it's very important to differentiate the people from the government and the actions of like the you know, the army, let's say. Now, with that being said, this is exactly the argument that I have and that I, you know, had against Israel, and the reason I left Israel. Because I felt like, and when I say Israel society, I don't mean everybody in Israel. I just mean like the feeling of being there. Israel society does not acknowledge or take into account the Palestinians, or let's say the Palestinian issue. Okay. And in my opinion, that's a very big problem. And it's also a kind of a hypocrisy, right? Because I'm saying I don't want to be judged based on what my government's doing, but then I'm judging these people based on what a person did in their government, or whatever, what a martyr did, or whatever, what a terrorist did, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And I think that's what's keeping Israeli society behind. And I think that it kind of, the core root of it is messianic ideologies, right? Like religion, and based around the Bible and you know, God give us this land. And then the more modern version of that, Zionism, nationalism, of like, as an identity, this is given to us. And then, you know, very recent history of like, well, the world gave us Israel, so it's ours. And like, that's totally the wrong conversation, right? Is like, obviously you can't turn back time. You're not going to kill 8 million Jews and kick them out of their home. But it's a history, and it's something that needs to be acknowledged, right? The Nakba, I never learned about the Nakba. And if people don't know, the Nakba is basically when Israel became a state, there was a period of time where the Palestinians were displaced from their land, and there's a lot of different opinions about how it happened, but there is extreme concrete factual evidence and numbers that you can't even argue with, and the number is very high. I think it's like 700,000 people. And the biggest issue that I feel in the Nakba is that once the Nakba happened, you know, you can argue until tomorrow about it was necessary. People say that the Palestinian leaders told them to leave. You know, there's lots of different ideas in this thing. But the problem is that after the Nakba, 70 years later, they're still in this kind of idea. They're still in this kind of like, they don't have the right to return. Me as a Jew living in America has the right to go to Israel and make aliyah and become an Israeli citizen, become a part of Israel. There's no law that exists for the Palestinians. So this dichotomy of like, I never learned about the Nakba in school. I wasn't educated about it in school. I learned about it when I was 25, you know? And when I learned about it, I was like, nah, that's bullshit. Nah, that's propaganda. Nah, that's, you know, anti-Semitic or whatever the fuck. And it's a shame, because if I had this in my mind as a kid growing up in the army, coming out into the world of Israel, I think that my view would be very different. Now, obviously, my view is different because I've matured and I'm an adult and I have my opinion. But I think as a young person, my initial reaction when I was traveling was like, no, I'm defending Israel. Like, I don't care what you have. You know, I don't want to listen to your pro-Palestinian or anti-Semitic things that you're saying to me. I know the truth. I was in the army. I know Israel. You've never been to Israel. This very strong defense mechanism of like, I need to protect myself and my nation because, and I think that, you know, tell me if I'm like, you know, in your life how this relates to you, but in my life, I'm a type of person that if somebody says to me something and I know that they're right, I'll start defending the thing because it's like a I can't admit that I'm wrong. You know, and I'm a human. I'm working on myself. I'm trying to become better at this, and you know, kind of the realizing this thing is a good trigger for me to turn it off. So like if I feel myself starting to argue about something, I'm like, wait a second, do I actually believe in what I'm saying, or am I just trying to argue with this person? And I think that a lot of Israel was like that. You know, it was like somebody was saying to me something so true, like look at the Nakba, and I'm like, that's bullshit. But like a part of me was like, oh shit. If that's real, then what else is real, you know? And this brings me all the way to kind of where we are right now. You know, post October 7th, obviously, you know, this was an extremely difficult time. I lost 4 extremely close friends, and I still have some in captivity, you know, at the Nova party. And it's been quite a difficult time. I think that I'm very fortunate and lucky, and I thank, you know, I pray every day for thanks that I'm not in Israel, that I'm not going through this on my skin, on my al-basari, on my meat is the translation for that, but it's a weird translation. But I'm not feeling it on my skin, and you know, but at the same time, it's been a completely tumultuous and difficult time for me because of all my friends and family that are in Israel and the conversations that the inherent situation brings, you know. And it's never about like
also in the state it was crazy, like the situation. You know,
I didn't feel it. You know, we're in the mountains. I don't really feel society so much. You know, and in general, like I feel like a lot of it is sensationalized because it's good news. You know, like anti-Semitism and the rise of anti-Semitism is a really good headline. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. Obviously, there, you know, it's objectively a real thing in society, and there's definitely a rise in this is the same thing, by the way, because people that are in a protest, right, let's say a pro-Palestinian protest, the underlying idea of Palestinians having right, it's not even an argument, right? Like this is a very simple thing, but that gets translated to, oh, the Jews are doing it. Oh, the Jews are the problem. Oh, you know, and yes, there's a lot of truth to this, right? We are, you know, a very elitist kind of culture in Judaism, you know, not even in a bad way, just in the way that it is. We, you know, Israel's policies are very focused on the Jewish identity. And so yes, there is some truth to that, but then the answer is not kill all the Jews or like kick everybody out of their homes. That's when you take an idea and you manipulate it and it becomes something worse. You know, it's kind of like how fascism comes from socialism, where socialism has an idea, but then it becomes very easily a fascistic kind of, you know, what's the word? You know, communist kind of vibe. So ideology, yeah. And it's like that person at the Palestinian rally that's saying, you know, free Palestine, he's not anti-Semitic. They're not anti-Semitic. But it could be that when they go home at night and they think about like, why is this situation happening? Because they don't have the right information, maybe because the information is being manipulated, maybe because of, you know, maybe just because that person feels super shitty about the situation. The conclusions become anti-Semitic. If I say something against Israel, I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm anti-Israel. right? There's a totally separate thing. Now, if I say something negative about Judaism, am I anti-Semitic, or do I just have an opinion about this topic, right? So this is where the lines get very blurry, I think, in my opinion. I really, it's obviously a very broad conversation, and I appreciate your silence listening. I think that really the biggest solution to this.
I'm like, there's a lot of things to say about the situation. I will say one thing that just popped into my mind, that my father's family is originally from Iraq. They had like a life in Iraq. I think a lot of generations, like probably way back.
Probably 1,000 at least.
Maybe, yeah. It was like Iran, and then I like not Iran. It was like Persia. And they were kicked out from Iraq, and I think it was in the 50s or something like this, because they didn't like Jews over there. They didn't like whatever. And the same thing is happening right now for the Palestinians. Basically, they were kicked out from their houses. And what I have to say is just like our generation, basically the second or the third generation, maybe
third,
of those people, we need to just not look at the past, and like just see the future, and not like say all the time like, look what my parents were kicked out of their houses, and blah blah blah. We need to see and to plan the future, because we can live here in peace. It's like
100%.
It happened. It was. There were times there were
before
Jews and Arabs living.
Yeah, before the state of Israel, there was relative peace. I mean, you had other factions coming in the whole time and killing everybody, but the actual people that lived there, they were pretty much in peace.
Basically.
I do want to say one thing about your family from Iraq, and this is not specifically about your family, but and this is like, this is kind of a little bit in conspiracy zone, but I believe that conspiracies are, they're true eventually. They're not just conspiracies. A lot of conspiracies turn out to be true, and it's less about like the conspiracy. It's more about the idea of what it's trying to say. But there's a really fascinating, there was an article, I think it was from the New York Times. No, I think it was actually from like one of those other ones, not the New York Times, but not the Washington Post, a big publication from about 20 years ago. And it was an article that stemmed a bunch of other different articles. Basically, it was a conversation with a ex-Mossad agent who essentially admitted that during the 50s and the 60s, during the 40s and the 50s, during the second Aliyah, which was the second influx of Jews into Israel, into the land of Israel, into the country of Israel. The narrative is that it was because of anti-Semitism in the Arab world, and the Arab world expelled. You had Yemen, you had Iraq, you had I guess Iran as well. You had Egyptian Jews, but those were like the main places that you had this kind of Arab Jew, right, that was kind of expelled from their land. And that's what kind of happened. And thank God that Israel was there, because Israel could get everybody in, right? Now, whenever a story or an idea has the narrative of like, oh, thank God Israel was there to bring in Jews, my brain is right away like Zionism, conspiracy, the Zionistic movement.
Wait, before you said there were Zionism in Iraq. There were like movements over there. It's like not something that you do.
No. I mean, like, there's an agenda.
But there were also pogroms. There were also fucking killing people.
100%. The pogroms are real. But wait, I didn't get to my conspiracy yet. The article that I'm talking about was about this Mossad agent that admitted after this, it spurred off a lot of investigation and information, and we know the information now. But admitted that there was a policy in the Mossad at the time that they need to bring more people into Israel. How do you bring more people into Israel? You create fear, you create division, you create anxiety, you create anti-Semitism, or not create anti-Semitism, but you propagandize, empower it, exactly. And this guy admitted that there was a bombing in a Egyptian hotel in the 40s, and it killed like 50 people, and like within a week or two, I think like 50,000 or 60,000 Jews left Egypt into Israel. It's very easy. It's very close to each other. And obviously, like, Israel has a very big benefit to have people come. So anyway, he admitted that this terrorist attack was actually a Mossad operation to create fear.
Actually, I can believe this story. Like, I can believe it because, like, back in the 50s and 40s, there were no rules like
there's no rules.
Yeah, man, there were like
there's no internet.
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows? So
who knows what happened?
Now this idea, right? And then later on, 20, 30 years later, we have more information about the agendas of the agendas of the Zionist movement and kind of how the government acted within that time. But now add to that the actual evidence and factual proof of pogroms, right? That were happening during that time. This is where like everything kind of becomes so difficult to understand, because it's like this thing is a real thing. The Holocaust is not a conspiracy, right? Like there was full anti-Semitism in the world, and Israel was a direct response for that. But it's like, where does this idea kind of begin and end? Because Israel was an idea way before the Holocaust, and my point is that, like, I think that when it comes to information and the way that we understand information, it's all fake. It's all controlled by, and I don't think it's like a person. I don't think it's like like the same person in the 40s and 50s that made this policy is the same person making the policy of now of like what's going on in Gaza. I think it's a system. Yes, it's a system, and I think it changes over time. But I think that it's very clear that we as humans are extremely susceptible to propaganda, to manipulation, to indoctrination. And I think that really and this is the same thing for like Hamas, right? Like you could have an oppressed people without having extreme violence as a result. Now, and again, it's not about like what's right or wrong. In my opinion, it's wrong, right? Both are wrong. Being oppressed is wrong, and the response to oppression with violence is wrong. But imagine if, and the reason that it's so prevalent is because of propaganda and indoctrination. The same propaganda that I had as a kid, not learning about the Nakba, is the same propaganda that a Palestinian kid has in Gaza. The difference is, and it's actually not even different, because when I'm propagandized in my little town about how bad Arabs are, at the same time, a terrorist attack happens and my uncle gets blown up by a person. So it's like the indoctrination and the propaganda is mirrored with reality. Hamas is saying, hey, all Jews are bad, and this kid just lost his whole family in a bombing. So it's like, of course he's going to now be easily indoctrinated, right?
It's a loop. It's a loop that will
a fucked up
never
loop.
end.
No. It has to end. It has to end, UV. We have to end
it will end. I don't know. I mean, if everyone will do art, it will end. It's like just simple as that.
It's as simple as that.
No, but honestly, we need to.
I wanted to ask you.
We need more pipes. We need more pipes between me as an Israeli, like a normal Israeli, like and
more
and
what?
Like all this pipes, like
pipes, connections,
like connections, like
communication.
How can I speak when I don't like. I have Arab Israeli friends, but I don't know Palestinians, because there's no place that
they can't come into Israel really. And you can't go there. They'll kill you.
And
so
I can go there also.
Yeah.
I don't know if they would kill me, but they were like,
maybe
who's
them?
It's a risk.
nobody's gonna kill you, but if a Hamas operative knew that there was an Israeli there, I'm imagining that they would probably kidnap you because that's kind of the agenda. But it's it's not necessarily.
That's what it's in my thoughts, but I don't know if it will happen. It's like,
I don't know if it will happen either. I've never been into Gaza. I've been, when I was living in Israel, I was spent not a lot of time, but a little amount of time in the West Bank after I lived there, like in the actual West Bank. Where I lived was not really the West Bank, but I was like next to Modi'in and Kiryat Sefer, like two huge cities. It's not like, but I did spend time going to communities in the West Bank and trying to talk to Palestinians and kind of like, see and understand these people a little bit better. And honestly, I never really got that far. I talked to a lot of older people, never people my age. It was always kind of like
that's the thing. We need people your age, people that understand
the next generation,
how you live. Yeah.
I just wanted to I wanted to bring it up first of all because I haven't had a chance to talk about it with the actual Israeli, and also, I want to see, like, we can admit, that Israel has an extremely bad reputation right now, and I think that in my opinion, I always had a bad reputation towards Israel. I was always kind of anti-Israel, but I saw that in the world there was a little bit of they weren't really paying attention to it that much. And I think now there's a lot more attention being brought into this situation. Do you feel like, as an Israeli, do you feel like threatened, or do you feel like bad about the way people are viewing you? Like, are you, you have a lot of interactions with people online. You have a lot of interactions with an international community. What is your feeling?
Yeah, first of all, I don't know if everyone knows that I'm Israeli, but like the people that I'm really good friends of them, like obviously they know. And I've talked with people actually like days after the attack and like the war started. I was talking to some of like people that that I know. For me, it was like I had this kind of feeling when the attack of 7 October happened. I was like obviously angry, Also, friends died, and I still have two friends that I know that are still in Gaza. So it was a lot of anger, and it was also a lot of like, wait, I don't need to be afraid to say that I'm Israeli, that I'm from Israel, So I was posting about it actually, and I got like a lot of messages and like people that are saying, look what you're doing in Gaza, and like and stuff like this, and basically what I really wanted is just to respect my friends that were
killed,
basically died, were killed, and like that's it.
Murdered.
I didn't say anything about like politics
Israel,
and whatever.
Politics. Yeah.
Or
but
Israel,
you still were
because
attacked.
I'm not into those kind of things. I'm not watching news. I'm not like I'm living life, and then I started talking to people about it, and it got to a point that obviously you can't convince them. They can convince you. So like you just hear, and then it's like, okay, whatever. Just like I always like to end it in a good, like
Friendly
energy, Like there were a Palestinian French girl that was speaking to me, that she said like, my family were in the Nakba. In how dare you can say about your friends, but not to condemn like what you're doing in Gaza. Whereas like I condemn those things, but it's not about this. Like 2 days after one of my friends died, I'm not thinking about like I just want to express my pain, like and then she understood it. Actually, a few days she asked,
she messaged you back?
She returned back. Yeah, she returned back, and she said she's sorry, and I said it's okay, and I was sorry about like, also I said, well, I'm sorry about like what happened to your family, because obviously,
Yeah.
you know, a family had to run away from the country that they were
Yeah.
living.
Yeah, and never can come back.
And it's not only home, it's also like you know, money and like things.
course.
You know, she said like we
course.
had like how do you say, like things,
Object, like a you
big
know,
object, belongings,
yeah,
you know,
belongings,
things.
belongings.
So it was very nice to see that she actually returned back and like said like sorry to be like not respect your moment, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And but I didn't want her to think that I am the focus, you know. Like, of course,
Yeah.
after
It's not
a
about
few days
you.
that I was like, yeah, after a few days that I was like, okay, I actually can speak, I actually can think, you know, and to be reasonable, you know. So we talked, you know, we like basically we talked and just listened to each other, listened to stories from each other. And this is what we need to do, you know.
I agree. I agree, and I think that the biggest reason that I wanted to get into this discussion is like not talking about like the actual politics and the situation, but talking about the solutions and like what we can do to make it better, right? And you're 100% right. Communicate, and it's not only it's also, you know, I'm obviously not in Israel, but for you in Israel, a lot of it is about the communication between yourselves, between different people in Israel, because, you know, no matter what happens, like no matter the escalation or whatever, the people have power. Let's just be like, especially in Israel, where it's such a you know, I don't care about democracy and all these labels, but like the people in Israel are very powerful, right? They control the army, first of all. If everybody wakes up tomorrow and says, I don't want to go to the army, there's no army. You know, it's 70% reserves. So it's not even, you know, it's not even people in active military. It's, so you have very control over that. You have extreme control over the economy. The economy is, you know, mostly predominantly weapons and and software and engineering. So if a coder or a robotics engineer, you know, or whatever, a physics scientist doesn't go to work, there's no economy. It's not an economy of farmers and things like that. So, you know, or whatever, automated systems or things like that. So people have a lot of power. And you could see, and this is obviously, you know, again, conspiracy, but you can see pre-October 7th, the biggest thing in Israel was about the judicial reform, was about the government essentially trying to take more power. You can argue left or right, whatever, but in an objective situation, they were basically doing what the Nazi Party did in Germany right before the fucking what is it called, that day that they got into government? The Vash.
Wait, who were doing the government?
The government, yeah. When the Nazi Party got first elected, they started changing a lot of laws of the government, and one of them was the judicial reform. You know, it's a classic fascistic regime takeover, right? And the Israeli government did it in a very smart way because they created a whole narrative around it that it's better for the civilians, right? Because it's like, you know, going to make things more less oversight, but actually in reality they were just trying to get more power. Anyway, my point is that there was mass protests throughout this experience, and this is mass protests that started in COVID against the lockdowns. And continued to this kind of government overreach. And, you know, again, me as somebody not living in Israel, I saw, okay, judicial reform, Israel's going to shit, fascist government, Bibi's going to be a dictator. Within 2 or 3 weeks, the protests started, and the change was very visible. Like, you know, okay, they still did the judicial reform. It still happened, and they did it behind closed doors, and they did it in different ways. But the nation, the people were so pissed off by this, and were so kind of like, this is not okay, that they created checks and balances, that even though the judicial reform happened, there's still some sort of control that the civilians retain. Now, you know, pretty much a month after that, October 7th happened, and now, you know, there's no talk about that, and all the fucking laws have changed. And that's
it's starting again. Like,
there's protests again. There is, but it did take.
Actually, I'm living really close to the place where the
Where they do
protests
the
are, so
But I think it's
lucky today it's like no protest, so
lucky, we'd have a lot of noise.
There's no noise. Yeah,
that's good.
background noise.
But I think it's an interesting thing, and I think it's not unique to Israel. I think it's it's kind of like in general in the world when people rise up. There is there is change that can happen, but I'm not a big activist. I don't really believe in protests. I think that really like the protests should happen at home. Like, the conversation should happen between me and my family. The conversation should happen between me and my friends. If I see my friend doing something that I don't believe in or I don't think it's right, then I should protest it. Not by, blocking his road or whatever, but by like putting a sign in his face, or telling him something that's a different opinion, or trying to show him the different things. Conversation. And I think that it's very important because I think now in Israel it is in a very unique place of change, big change, and global politics that can affect everybody in the world, right? We saw the whole thing with Iran, very scary, very like this is not just a Israel problem, this is like a whole thing. But to me, it's like the religious zealotism or messianic idea has, and it probably always was part of the government, but I think that now it's to a point where there needs to be like a very big shift, because I know from experience that these religious people with these dogmatic ideas and messianic ideas, there's no talking to them. There's no convincing them. There's no.
Listen, I mean, after the next elections, when the next election will be, I think it's like 2 years or something like this. If this government will elect it again, telling you, me personally,
Civil
I'm not
war.
gonna live in Israel.
No,
I'm not gonna live in Israel.
You're just gonna leave.
Not just because this government, like it's a crazy government. It's because it's gonna be a civil war, man.
Yeah, that'd be a civil war for sure.
And I don't want to be a part of a civil war. I want to live.
Of course.
Do my shit,
Yeah, of course. It's scary because, like, and I don't say this in a way of like, oh, you can't talk to them. They're not. You can't talk to them. You can't convince them. I'm not saying that like the ultimatum is like to kill them, obviously. But I think that what needs to happen is they need to divulge out of the government. There needs to be in America, there's an idea of separation of state and church, right? Now, in reality, obviously, it's not really in existence. The church and government has a very strong tie together. But I think that in Israel, there's never this idea of the difference between like a Jewish state and an Israeli government, right? These two things need to separate. If you have a government who's Israeli, nothing to do with Judaism, but an Israeli government, then you allow the Gazans and Palestinians to self-affirm themselves as civilians. You have the secular people like yourself and myself don't feel extreme pressure to extreme pressure to give in to religious people, because we have this idea that like the religious people are what's keeping our culture alive. It's what's keeping keeping us safe with God and praying. And it's like, that's a manipulation. That's propaganda, right? But if you separate those two, then those things become a lot more easier to see. So yeah, I mean, I think that we kind of kill this dead horse, but it's about communication. It's about listening, right? Hearing the other person. I want to hear, people that are pro-Israel's voices. I want to hear people that are pro-Palestinians' voices. I want to hear both things. Excuse me. I want to hear both things. I want to formulate my opinions, not based on the media, not based on the government, because that's all propaganda. It's all propaganda. I want to base my opinions on experiences, on evidence, on opinions of other people that are different than mine, and I think that's the only way forward.
The media should do it. The media should go more to places and make interviews of people, and
They don't want to do that.
Instead of like showing us the crazy shit that we're seeing all day,
Of course. Or like, the sensational stories of, people that were, I don't know why there's no law. Like where is the law of like, if a hostage returns to Israel, they should not be allowed to be in the media. Like,
that's like it's like like a reality show inside the news.
It's just propaganda. It's literally propaganda. And like, okay, that the hostage needs to express themselves, right? Because they went through a traumatic experience. But like expressing yourself to 7 million people, it's not going to help you. It's not going to help you. It's going to make it worse. It's going to make it worse. You're becoming a celebrity from your trauma. So you're going to be stuck in your trauma forever. It's so fucked up. And they use it as a tool to get people to be okay with killing people in Gaza because they raped my neighbor, It's such a fucked up like propaganda.
It's just getting more. You're getting more like not fear, like
fuel
on
the fire, anger.
Fuel the fire. It's like and I felt it also.
Of course, me too.
Obviously, I've been watching.
Me too.
I've been watching the news, because
you have to. It's in your face.
Yeah. And also, it's like
scary.
A period of time that you need you need to know what's going on. You can't be like disconnected like I always be. And it's like every time you see something happen, you're like, "Fuck! What the fuck they're doing to us?"
Yeah.
Like it's like it's fear, and then you become relaxed, and then you become like, "Wait, but like I can't," and like it's just like, look what we're doing to them,
Yeah, of course.
It's like it will never end.
Never ends.
If we feed ourselves from the media,
from the news, especially, and you saying, look what we're doing to them, that's because you are separating yourself from the media. If you just had media all day, you wouldn't even think about them. They don't think about them. Like, I don't want to get too personal, but some people in my family, it's very hard for me to talk to them because they are only being fed a narrative, and whenever I try to speak to them about the reality. Okay, not my narrative, just the reality.
Yeah,
general, you can't. They don't understand. They think that either I'm lying or that I'm upset at them or that I'm angry, and it's just such a strong pull into again, what we spoke about before, the Jewish guilt, the the fear of anti-Semitism, right? Of like our ancestors, your grandparents got kicked out of Iraq. My grandparents got kicked out of Europe. It's like there's this idea that's always
how do you say, like a elitism.
Elitism. Like I'm better than you.
Elitism. Yeah.
Yes. Of course. That's built into Judaism. Even if you're not religious, even if you're just culturally Jewish, you still have the idea that we were chosen. You have the idea that everybody else is a goy.
You were fed when you were little, man.
Yes. Of course.
We are the chosen people.
I just had this conversation with a friend. And we can kind of like tear off here, but specifically about the chosen thing. He was saying to me like he's a Bolivian, but a European Bolivian, so he lives in Europe, and he's been to Israel. He dated an Israeli girl, so obviously he hates Israelis. But no, I'm joking. But he's been to Israel multiple times, and he said like there's something about Israelis and Jewish people that like obviously we're like a different type of a person because we can see this, but the Israeli that you meet at a festival or the Israeli you meet in India, there's this elitism. There's this idea of, and it's not even their fault. It's not even our fault. We were just taught this as a kid. And he said like, you don't understand it until you go to Israel and see how amazing the society is, how high level the people are, how cool the people are. And then it's like, and then he's like, he kind of went in a circle of like, oh, why do these Israelis think they're so fucking great? And then he's like, oh, Israelis are pretty fucking great. And then it's like this, this circle. And I found that very interesting because, I find myself in the same circle. Like you said, when the October 7th attacks happened, my initial thing was fuck. I never went as far as like, kill everybody in Gaza. I think that was very extreme. But my initial reaction was like, Israel has to defend itself. You can't let these things happen. Yeah. My friends were killed. What do we do? And then within a week, I mean, it was more than a week because every day somebody else was said to be dead.
Yeah.
So it was like a week of hearing people dying. But within a certain amount of time, I realized that like I'm not doing any service to my friends that are dead by killing other people. I'm not helping.
Yeah.
And then I'm not making Israel safer by killing other people, because this is just the same thing we've been doing. The only reason that terrorists exist is because they've seen their family being killed, and it's very easy for them to blame Jews because they're the people that killed the family. So, you know, it's just creating more disparity. And then again, this loop happened of like, okay, I'm a Jewish person. I am an Israeli. Like, I have to have acknowledgement of my people and my place that I'm from. And every time I post something that can be looked at as anti-Israel, I try to bring into it a place of like, this is not anti-Israel, this is pro-Israel. Showing the atrocities, showing the bad things are positive for the place that I care about. Hiding things and lying and propaganda does not make your place better. It makes it worse. You know what I mean? It's kind of this full circle. And I feel like if more of us realize this, then there will be more of a conversation about not Israel's bad, but Israel needs to be better. You know what I mean?
How can we improve? Yeah.
How can we improve?
Sure.
Yeah.
We need to release the fact that we are perfect, or like we are doing the right thing every time, or to trust blindly what the government does. You know, we need to ask questions.
Of course, the government's always bad.
Both sides needs to ask questions.
Both sides, 100%. It's always a both sides thing, you know. But when it comes to the Palestinians, it's very difficult to say anything about their side because they don't have a side. You know, they're just like, I mean, okay, now obviously it's like all rubble, but before that, they had a society, very nice culture, lots of beautiful buildings, but there was no freedom. There's no, like, just because they're at the beach and they have beautiful houses, they don't really have a culture or like an education system. It's all around, we're oppressed people. We are being oppressed. And like, that's because they are being, you know what I mean? So it's like this kind of like weird thing that's like, it never ends, you know? And I think that because we are the chosen people, because we are better than everybody else, we need to see like the solution, you know? We need to be like, doesn't matter that my cousin was killed in a terrorist attack. Doesn't matter that my brother was a soldier. Like, let's fucking make a situation where there is actual peace, where there's actual sustenance for these people so that they can be like us. And they can be one day like, oh, we're now we're the chosen people. We're the best people. Yeah. And you know what I mean? And then like, instead of like violence.
I really wish it would happen.
I hope so too.
It's a process. It's a long process, though. You know, it's something that can take time. You know, we built Israel, this country, for 70 years. You know, until we got to the point that it's like a country that exists. You know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It does take time. Well,
hopefully it will happen.
Hopefully it will happen. We can, we can pray and we can continue doing the things that we know make us feel good, and then therefore the world feel good, and therefore, the people around us feel good, and we can continue creating inspiration in the world and making things that inspire creativity and beauty and good, and hopefully that will be contagious, and that will create a Physarum of networks, a Physarum of network. Thank you so much for your time, brother. It was really, really nice to talk to you.
Thank you very much. It was
You're
a
really,
pleasure.
A super unique dude.
And, thank you, man. It was really, really, really fun. And good luck with this podcast. I really enjoy and watching it every episode, and it's so nice to have you to be here and to do it also.
Hell yeah.